You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy and break down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 421, our long-awaited Andor teaser trailer breakdown. And we've got a great show for you tonight. We are going to get into the finest of details in this trailer, and I mean, no frame will go unlooked at throughout the course of this episode. We're going to be talking about the writers, the directors, some of the technical things that have happened. We'll reference some of the material that's been shared online through Vanity Fair and other formal public type media formats and forums. So there won't be any technically spoilers here, although I will say there are a couple things that could border as very light spoilers. So consider this your warning. We'll warn you again here in a little bit. It's going to be a lot of fun to finally get into this because I, as some of you may know, am pretty passionate about this show. And I know Jonesy's pretty excited about it as well. And speaking of passionate and fair warnings and Jonesy, there he is. Hey,
didn't see that coming.
No. You know, you're got the. Take this as a compliment, but tonight, normally you rock shades, and I say Bono, right? Mm. You've almost got like a Texas Willie, like a younger Willie Nelson look going on. I kind of dig it, man. What's going on there?
Well, you know, I was rocking my cowboy boots this weekend, and I actually bought a hat. I actually bought a hat too. I saw proper hats. Yeah.
So, well, welcome to the Hill Country, my friend.
I'm telling you, man, I like it out there.
Yeah, it's nice.
You get used to that kind of way of living, yeah.
Yeah, nice warm weather, good German food, lots of wine. Yeah,
it is so hot in Texas right now. It's not even funny.
It is pretty hot out here. But no, how are you doing?
Doing great. Trying to stay cool, which is always an event down here, but it's even worse here than usual. But how about yourself? A little under the weather, sounds like, but
a little under the weather again.
Pushing through as usual.
As usual, I'm here. And
he'll be up all night, folks.
Well, and I was gonna lead in with this on the eve of the final episode of Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I was thinking about, am I in like good health to stay up for the rest of the night? And I said, what am I even talking about? I don't really care. I'm going to push through this, die as I may. I am going to stay up to watch this. And from what I think it was last episode, we mentioned that there were rumors that we were probably going to get about an hour, 33-minute show. I think even to this point, and I have not had a chance in the last probably 3 or 4 hours to go online and take a look, but it does sound like there still isn't conclusive evidence of whether or not that's going to be an hour and 33 with the Hayden Christensen, Kathleen Kennedy Q&A that they're broadcasting at some of the theaters, or if that's a full hour and 33 minutes. I think the safest bet as far as the most recent intel that I've got is it's going to be at least 63 minutes or ish around there. Have you heard anything different? And how do you feel about the time? I don't want to talk about too much because we're going to break all this down here in a couple of days, but given it is the eve of the final show.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I think if it's at least an hour, I think that's probably enough time to get through everything. I think an hour and a half would be amazing. Yeah. But I'm with you. The Q&A is always that's the wild card of how they're actually going to do that. Or is it going to be after? Are they going to do it before? Or, what does that actually look like? And I mean, shoot, we're 5 hours away, like almost exactly 5 hours away from this thing dropping. So we're going to find out here soon enough. So we don't really have to speculate too hard. And I think I'll actually probably stay up for it tonight as well. And may even throw a channel up in Discord and we can all watch it together. So if you're interested in coming out, maybe watch it on Discord or being in the same room as we all watch it at the same time in Discord and be able to talk, cantinacast.com/Discord.
Yep. And I plan on contributing some initial thoughts at, what would that be? Almost 3:30 in the morning at that point.
Central time, yeah. For you East Coasters, Mike Rondo's probably just waking up to go to work. So he'll get caught up real quick.
But yeah, I plan on throwing some, we've got a spoiler chat in there for that specifically. So I'm looking forward to contributing to that. And also, more importantly, seeing what everybody else thinks as well. It's always cool to see everybody's initial reactions that visits our our Discord server, which is a lot of fun.
All right. So, hey, let's do a little bit of news real quick. We'll just kind of blitz through some of this. There's a lot of comic and toys and collectibles. So if that's your thing, you might be interested. If not, you might skip ahead about 5 minutes. But so comics, one of the things we missed that came out right after we went on air last week, since we went on Wednesday, was that Star Wars Visions is actually getting a Marvel comic, and it's going to be featuring the Ronin, and it's going to be written and drawn by Takashi Okazaki, who was one of the writers for the Duel in Star Wars Visions.
Yep.
And they have some preview of the work, and it looks really cool. I mean, it's very much in the same tone and vein, same style that the Duel was in. But man, I'm actually pretty stoked about that. I think the comic format for what they did on screen, I think is going to translate really well for that story. And I'm excited for that to be the visual, like both the really cool story aspect of it, but also the visuals that go with it. And it's supposed to be brand new, something completely different that we haven't had. So it wasn't necessarily in the Ronin book or anything like that. So I think this is a pretty cool thing to move forward. More comic news. Obi-Wan number 2 is coming out next week on the 29th of June. There's a preview out for that. And like you said earlier, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 21st, but on Wednesday, the 22nd, the final issue of Crimson Reign comes out. There is still a preview over on StarWars.com. If you want to get a little sneak peek of that, you're going to want to pick that one up. So this is the end of the second of the third of the trilogy, the second phase of the trilogy series here that Charles Soule is doing. So again, you're going to want to get this one done before you go over to the next one.
So we're very blessed and fortunate that we get the advanced reader copies of the comics. I saw it come into my mailbox today. I've not looked at it, but have you had a chance to read it? And thumbs up.
I'm not going to spoil it. Not spoiling it for anybody.
Nothing.
People just got to go.
Can't give us even a hint.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Let's just say that Kira has pissed off the wrong person in the galaxy.
All right. Good.
So it's getting good. It really sets up and makes you want more for Hidden Empire, which comes out later this year. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Good to hear.
All right. Toys and collectibles. So Obi-Wan Wednesdays, again, kind of came out after we went on air yesterday. We kind of missed it. But anyway, a couple of things in the Lego front. Cad Bane's Justifier Starship is going to be coming out. I believe this is all pre-order starting sometime in July. But what's cool about it is going to come with, of course, the only thing you really need with these is the minifigs. Cad Bane, Omega, Hunter, Fennec Shan, and Toto 360.
Yeah.
Will all be in there. They're also going to reissue the ATTE Walker, which has a couple of battle droids. It has some of the 212, which is, of course, Commander Cody, and Cody will be also part of that one. And then officially in the Obi-Wan Wednesdays, I think the other one was probably just a Lego Con announcement, but in the Obi-Wan Wednesdays, you got a Black Series Purge Trooper. You got one Jack, one JAC, which is the bounty hunter droid that we all guessed was not one Jack. You've also got a couple of Funko Pops in there for Colin Roken, as well as Darth Vader. And then there's a vintage collection Darth Vader in there as well. So if you're a collector, you got some really cool stuff that you could pre-order here pretty soon.
I didn't catch it. I didn't realize that was his name.
Colin. Kawlan.
Okay.
Yeah.
This just in. Because I don't think he was in the credits as Colin. I thought he was in just as Roken. So.
I think it was just Roken, yeah. And everything we've seen has been pretty much just Roken. But
right.
Yeah, leave it to an action figure to give you the full name. So
yeah.
Or Funko Pop in this case.
Awesome.
But yeah, so quick rundown on things you can go spend all your hard-earned money on.
Yes. Star Wars is nothing but, if not a pit of despair when it comes to your wallet and your finances.
Thanks, George, for setting that precedence.
Thank you, sir. The gift keeps on giving. And speaking of gifts that give.
And thank yous.
Yeah, we've got some new Patreon folks. So thank you again for, first off, everybody that's been a Patreon member up until this point, especially all of the new folks that have come on here recently. I don't know if it's just a matter of celebration or people are finally, getting out there and getting the show, finding the show, whatever it is. It's probably Kenobi as well, which we're very fortunate. But we always see the spike in anytime there's a TV series or a movie, and then things kind of die down a little bit. But we're very fortunate that we've been able to add additional 3 other people since our last show here. We've got Eric Rankins and Sky, as well as who was the other one? I'm sorry, that we got to as far as the $10 or the $5 tiers. I'm sorry, $5 are Erica Rankins and Sky. So thank you guys. Sky's with us. At least you chimed in a little while ago. So thank you so much for being here. And that is part of our green milk tier. And then we had another one. We had a big one. What was that one?
I think we asked actually last week. So Rob upped his contribution up to the plus a little extra tier to go along with Mike and Kathy. So huge thanks to all of them who are kind of in our special class there. They get a special thank you every single week. And they also get a special call out on our cards anytime or in the credits. And anytime we do something, we'll throw that out to those folks first and get feedback or just give them a little preview of something. So again, a huge thank you to all of the Patreon members. It's growing for us, which is opening some opportunities for us as well. So huge thank you from us. If you'd like to go check it out, we haven't been posting as much exclusive content, but you do get early release everything. And then anytime when we get back on a regular schedule here with Kenobi, kind of phasing out a little bit, you will get more regular content. We're going to have a lot of things we want to do with the space. So please come check it out. cantinacast.com/Patreon. We'll get you there.
Yes. Yep. We've got a number of stories in the backlog here to get to, a number of stories. Wow, I'm back at work. We've got a number of shows in the backlog of things that we want to get done very soon. Sky says you're welcome. Thanks, Sky, once again. And we've also got, I plan on resurrecting the Patreon group we did. We had one of those just kind of as a pilot. I know there were a number of folks that joined us I think we had 3 folks that joined us on that one. That was a lot of fun. So I plan on doing one here, or Jonesy will probably join us. I think you weren't in that one because you were off traveling or doing something at the time.
Yeah, I was in the first one, but the last one I wasn't able to make it. But yeah.
Yeah.
So and you had like Cab and Lauren and
Risk, I think it was.
And yeah, Cole was on there. Yeah.
Yep. So I think the next one will probably be after Kenobi. So hopefully next week, and I haven't even talked to Jonesy about this yet, so don't tell him.
Yeah, we're figuring it out on the air. This is how things work.
Either next week or very shortly after that will be the return of that Patreon show. And we'll ask for some folks to kind of volunteer, come on, we'll record it, we'll release it, and we'll kind of digest everything that happened with Kenobi. I'm curious as to hear what everybody's feedback and feelings and opinions, and more importantly, what they speculate will happen as we go from here, if anything, So
yeah, I mean, depending on what we get here in a few hours, could be some really big questions about what might be next for Obi-Wan and Hayden Christensen, besides Ahsoka, and where do they go from there? It could be a really interesting conversation, and I would anticipate you and I'll probably get into some character dissections and stuff like that here at some point as well, or kind of character focuses. We just kind of take a deeper dive into each of the characters that we learned a little bit about. Stuff like that might be kind of fun too.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to talk about Andor and the teaser trailer. And there's a lot of stuff in here. Like if you look at our show notes, my goodness, it's long, and I apologize for that, Jonesy. But it's a novella, folks. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about, and hopefully this will be stuff that's either new to you, things that you haven't heard. I know especially with Celebration when that happened, there was a lot that's just been thrown at us. We had the Hollywood Reporter stuff that came, or was it Hollywood Reporter? No, it was Vanity Fair.
Yeah, Vanity Fair. Yeah,
they had some coverage. There's been some interviews that have been done with Diego Luna, Tony Gilroy. There's Michael Rejwan is one of the producers. A number of folks have been speaking about Andor and providing these little clues, bits and pieces here that we can kind of put together to kind of tell at least more about the framework of the story and where we think it's going to go. But on top of that, we'll, of course, at the very end of this episode, go ahead and break down the trailer and point out some things that are of interest and maybe not necessarily spoilers and just things that have got me scratching my head and wondering and speculating about. So
maybe before we get started, though, Albert, maybe for folks who are a little bit newer to the show, you had spoke at the during the introduction that this is something that's very personal to you, and so I was hoping maybe you could just kind of share with folks what this story kind of means to you and it just kind of the feelings that you're getting as we go into the series that help frame up your excitement for us.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to Rogue One, I think. I think I may have talked about this already on an episode, and I was actually thinking about as a Patreon episode, or maybe even as another episode that we spend some time, you and I, and maybe I've got some people in mind. I think you probably know who I'm talking about. Bringing on to the show as guests that host other shows. And kind of talking about this too, because my story isn't unique, and that was very clear to me at Celebration this year. But in a nutshell, I would say, when Rogue One came out, that was kind of life changing for me in a lot of ways from Star Wars perspective. There were people like Jimmy Smits out there, and a couple of other characters off, back behind the scenes, way buried in the credits that were of Hispanic, Latino, Latinx descent. But this is somebody. My parents are both from Mexico. Well, they're not from Mexico, but my grandparents are both from Mexico, and so having Diego Luna, a national Mexican, on the screen as a Star Wars character was huge. It was momentous for us, and it suddenly became a character that everybody in my family gravitated to. Right? We all liked the Lukes and the Leias and et cetera, for different reasons, but this was somebody that was us, and they were on screen for the first time. On top of that, you get this. Then when Andor was talked about and we were being told that we're going to get this immigrant story, both of my families were immigrant workers. And so they would constantly be migrating back and forth from different states, doing odd jobs or whatever they could to make, ends meet. So there's just a lot of things that just kind of hit home personally for me. Now, of course, we were never under the rule of the empire, but so
Thankfully.
from that perspective, that's where it kind of breaks. But there's something to be said about representation here, and that's really what it comes down to for me in this series. I think it's just a blessing that we're getting the quality of production that we are with Andor. Like, it doesn't feel to me, and we'll talk about this here, I guess, in our opening thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't know that it feels as much as a TV show as it does like a movie.
Yeah.
Everything that we're seeing from the artwork, the concept art, of the music itself, even this teaser trailer that's only 2 minutes long was put together at
the
such
cinematography.
a high level of quality. I mean, the writers that they've got coming in here have done some really amazing things in this genre of criminal thriller, spy, espionage. Right, it seems to be kind of floating in that space, and we've got some really solid talent that are that's behind this as well. So it just looks like they've not cut any corners when it comes to the show, and that's not to throw feedback or shade on any of the other series that have come before, but I think there's times when you're watching Mando, and we've pointed this out before, right? It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but there are moments in some of the more recent TV shows where it can feel like a TV show and not more of a movie. And so far, there's nothing, with a couple of things, with the exception of a couple things in the trailer, which we'll talk about, that feel like it's a TV series. It very much feels beginning to end like this is a production movie. And on top of all that, we're also potentially getting, we're getting 2 seasons here, right? So a total of 24 episodes. This is going to be a massive amount of Star Wars content at a very high quality if everything goes as planned.
Right. And I think one story you shared with me at Celebration is that this show really could be very multi-generational. And I know we say that about Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Because you kind of bridge the original trilogy folks with the prequel trilogy folks, and those two groups are merging more and more together in different ways. But from again, kind of your story, or from the people that it represents story, you shared with me about your dad's response to this, right? And just how excited that he was. And again, another connection standpoint, or another connection with, within your family. But I think also this is going to be a commonplace story, I think, where we're going to have parents and kids and grandkids coming together to watch this show and be able to, I don't know, just kind of have a completely transcendent moment in some ways, to have, they star, and really almost an entire cast, of and just amazing Mexican actors and other Latinx type of actors. And so this is going to be really, really cool. And I'm really excited to hear some of those stories that end up coming out of just how families respond to this. You're on mute.
I told Jonesy that I'm going to go on mute to cough, and I said, just be ready, because I'm going to forget to come off mute. There are, I'll get into this again when we do this show, but there are some personal stories I want to share about my father and kind of my introduction in Star Wars, because it came from him, and just how that's kind of developed over time, and now it's gone to what kind of Jonesy was speaking to. It's like a new level, right? There's a new appreciation for Star Wars from him, specifically because one single person now is on screen, because that representation is there. So I do want to hit that home a little bit harder here down the road. So, but let's talk about the I guess let's talk about some of the technical notes, I guess, if you will. I mean, for
the tail of the tape,
the tail of the tape, as we've called it here. There, as we officially, August 31st is when this is coming out. The filming began in 2020, but it was delayed for an entire year because of, I don't know, some pandemic or something that was happening that was going on.
Never heard of it. Fake news.
Right, fake news. And now here's the only really other big one that I had on here was they've touted this as not using the volume, right? This was being done around the time Mando was getting started in filming. They were using that as kind of the pilot. It was all brand new technology, and they opted not to go for that. And I think it's very clear in some of the shots that we're seeing. These are on-set, live, type
on
shots.
Location. Yeah.
On location, yep.
Now, that's not to say the volume won't be used. And we'll talk through. I think you found some examples in there that definitely seem like it, but I think definitely the framing of what they want to do, you could not do with the volume, and it was very important for them to do this on location with physical props in order for this to really feel. And I think that's maybe what makes it feel maybe very Star Warsy in that kind of way, that very lived in and that very intimate environment of what is home, and it's really going to drive home. This idea of a migrant that's home taken away, new home, and then new home is invaded, and that's really difficult to do if you don't feel like you are there in it, rather than in a big studio with a big screen wrapped around you.
Yeah, Yeah, for sure. And I think and not to go back to this because we just spoke about it with Kenobi, but one of the things that's very clear to me, or at least very apparent to me, is the level of depth that we get. Right?
Absolutely.
Yes, granted, there are some really amazing things they're doing with the volume, and that technology's only going to get better. I guarantee you that. Right? We won't even probably be talking about this in a few years, several years from now. However, there are certain things that we're seeing in this trailer that I just don't think we're able to replicate right now with something like the volume. You have to be on location to give you that three-dimensional space or that vast expanse that you would expect from certain shots and some of the settings and some of the frames that you're trying to establish, right? So we're definitely seeing all that.
And we're going to see a couple where you very pan back, and it reminds me of like Lord of the Rings. You just couldn't do that unless you were on location and you get that kind of view and that kind of camera work, and the scale and, like you said, the depth are so important. And so very imagery of very much a Lord of the Rings of on location and these really sweeping panning shots, which I think will be very important to establish, really just establish the environments that we're going to be in.
Yep. Three primary writers. There's Toby Haynes, Susanna White, and Benjamin Karen. Sorry.
Those are the directors, right?
Sorry, directors. I said writers. Those are the three directors.
Well, there's a handful of writers involved with this thing too.
Yeah, and there are. We can go through all these, but honestly, I think the bigger ones that stand out for me are the guy that did The Americans. He did a number of episodes on The Americans.
Stephen Schiff, right?
Yep, and that was and the reason why he was sought after, and whether he came to them or they went to him, I'm not sure. But I mean, this is kind of fits in the wheelhouse, right? In terms of what they're trying to tell. This is espionage, kind of, again, criminal, wanted, on the hunt kind of story. If you've ever seen The Americans, they're undercover agents for the Russians or vice versa. I forget now which one it is. But
yeah, the way around.
Yep. But yeah, there's some House of Card writers in here, and there's also, of course, Tony Gilroy, who gave us the Bourne trilogy, and then was one of the guys that came back. There was a couple of them, but one of the guys that came back and did the reshoots, rewrote for a lot of the reshoots in Rogue One, which we thought was going to be, huge disaster. Remember when the sky was falling down because Rogue One is going back to reshoots, and then it turns out to be this freaking amazing movie that seems to be getting better and better over time. So that all bodes well, I think, for the talent behind the show.
So how are you feeling though with multiple directors, multiple writers? We're kind of going back to the same formula, and I think some of that maybe is because of where this project started. But now that we've had Deborah Chow, she didn't write it, but a singular director or more consistent writing staff with Obi-Wan Kenobi versus what we've had with Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, where we have a lot of the varying styles and everything else. How are you feeling about this coming into this series based on what we've seen with the bodies of work that we have a pretty good sampling, maybe not from these folks, but just in general about that kind of differences that we can see.
Yeah.
How are you feeling going into that?
I'm okay. And I say that because the biggest concern my biggest gripe with if you want to bring up the sequel trilogies is just the lack of vision beginning to end, right? And having that consistency of writing and being able to pass the torch off and know where you're going with the story rather than just leaving it up to the next person to kind of figure out and change and all that. That's really the biggest gripe that I have with the sequel trilogy. And I think it's fair criticism because I think we've all seen where they try to go back and readjust, right? With this is not atypical for a television series, right? We've got 4 writers and 3 directors on 12 episodes. So it's not like we have 12 writers and 12 directors, right? There is still a level of consistency here. And I think on one of the writers, I think they're only doing one. I think Schiff's only coming in for like the 5th to write the 5th episode, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong on that. So really, you're talking about 3 writers. So provided they have a beginning and middle and an end, and they know what the story is that they want to tell, they've already thought about it, and they're not leaving it to. They weren't leaving it to anyone to kind of guess and make up as they went along. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it actually works in their favor, right? Everybody knows exactly what they need to hit, what are the beats they need to hit, and we're going to get a story that at least feels consistent, and there's a thread through all of these, rather than feeling it displaced or disjointed in any way. So, I'm not overly concerned. I think most of the best series that are out there have very similar experiences. I think of like Lost and Breaking Bad. They had a staff of writers and they had a staff of directors, and sometimes this would change in and out, but for the most part, every season had a core group of them that stayed together, and that they turned out to be successful. And plus, you're only dealing with 12 episodes. There's not like a 24 episode thing where you've got tons more people, and there's all these quote filler episodes that they could start spinning off, and people lose interest and that sort of thing. So it does feel very lean in terms of what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, I think the only one that stood out to me was Benjamin Caron. He's directing an episode kind of right in the middle. And again, we're assuming these are all accurate, but he's directing episode 7 and then 11 and 12. And to have kind of a standalone in the middle is a little odd to me. But again, maybe the other ones seem to be grouped in episodes or groupings of 3, which you could interpret as kind of miniature story arcs, which I think would make sense. And so again, to your point, I think that could help us keep that consistency. And if we're wrapping up kind of these small waves, then it might have a more natural move to the next director stylistically if there's a huge difference. Not huge difference, but if there's a difference in how they approach their work. And to be honest, I'm not really familiar with with the body of work of each of the directors, so it's not really a fair assessment. I would say we're going to get something completely wildly different. It's not like having, Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino or someone come in who has a very particular style, so we'll have to see how each one of these approach the work. And again, I think it's going to be, to your point, I think the writing is the thing that can really bridge all of that together with a seamless story that doesn't seem to get lost as you go through the motions of the show. Mm-hmm. No pun intended, but lost.
Right. I was like, yeah, that's a good one. So what I've also seen historically with television is and the reason I called this out, whenever there's a break, right? You've got a writer that's doing like 3 episodes, and then there's a break of a single writer or a single director right in the middle, and then it picks up with another bunch of 3 or 4 episodes with that same director, 3 or 4 episodes with that same writer.
That means Luke Skywalker's going to show up?
Well, it means that usually that is a pivotal moment in the series. If you think about it, that's the halfway mark, right? So technically speaking, we may get left with a big cliffhanger by the end of the 6th episode, because they tend to write in kind of these blocks at times.
Right.
And so coming into the 7th episode, there may be something that was very, pivotal, right? Something really huge. And so this particular writer has a gift or a talent or just a vision, right? Is passionate about, has the best story, had the best pitch to kind of pick up where that left off. So again, we have no idea really what these episodes are about, but that's usually what you'll see. And a good example of that is if you think about like Dave Filoni and Mandalorian, right? He was brought in to write very specific episodes anytime that the Force was involved, or Ahsoka Tano or Luke Skywalker, whoever it was. So that's one recent example of that. But if you go back to some of the shows that I've mentioned, like Lost, anytime there was Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof, you were tuning in because those were the main writers, and you'd have all the staff writer writing most of the season. Then suddenly episode 12 was written by them. It was huge. Like there was something really big or monumental or pivotal that happened in that episode. So maybe it's a sign, maybe it's not, but that would be my suspect because both the director and the writer switch only for that episode in particular.
Interesting.
So, yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's talk quickly about the cast. I think we know Diego Luna,
sure,
Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, Stellan Skarsgård, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. His name is Luthen. His name came from, if you go watch the YouTube trailer and turn the credits on or the subtitles, you get to see the names of a lot of these folks, which is interesting. Even though officially, I don't think they've actually given us his name. Adria Ariona is the woman that I'm calling Andor's friend / relative. I think it's probably his younger sister, and we'll talk more. Well. Yeah, there's some scenes in there that kind of lead us to think that he's got a little sister, and she's probably looks the closest to him. There's Denise Gao. She's an Imperial officer. I was able to.
Every time I see her come on the trailer, I'm like, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah. I can see that. I didn't think about that.
Well, I just watched Scream 2, which is probably why she's like front and center
fresh in your mind. In your mind. Kyle Soller. I'm not familiar with his work. I know he's done a lot of like period pieces, television movies, that kind of thing. But he's an Imperial agent. He looks to be the main Imperial agent that we'll be talking about here in the trailer in just a second. There's Fiona Shaw, who is the woman at the very end of the trailer who was listed as Marva. And Marva, I'm going to say that she's part of the soon-to-be Rebel Alliance. So she does seem like the person that's kind of maybe the non-aggressive Saw Gerrera or she fits into that whole group in some way. That's kind of how I'm depicting her. Uh-huh. Then there were a couple of other people like Robert Ems, Anton Lesser, who is an Imperial officer. We'll talk about him. I found him in the trailer. And then David Heyman. They're all in, quote, undisclosed roles, but I only know that one of them is in this trailer itself. And then the biggest one was Alan Tudyk was originally going to be. I mean, he was touted. They were talking about it, and then somewhere along the lines, I think when they it's speculation on my part, but it feels like he was rumored to be in it, and then when they decided, oh, we're going to do 2 seasons because there's too much to pack into the first season, they thought, well, in season 2, maybe we'll pick up the pieces there and tell that story of how those two met, and have him come on and provide the voice of K2SO, who I think a lot of people would like to see as part of the series at some point.
Right, because we know season 1 is going to be really focused on kind of year 1 of this major transition for Cassian Andor. And then season 2 is supposed to span really several years, which comes right up to the beginning of where we pick up at Rogue One. So that one's going to be several years where this is really, what are we, like 5 or 7 years? 5 years before Rogue One.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that. So, and I think one name you may have skipped over was Forrest Whitaker, Saw Gerrera.
Oh yeah, I did skip him over. I didn't mean to do
yeah,
him.
No one major though. It's fine.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, he's probably just a cameo.
Well, you think so? Not to jump ahead, but
I was joking. He's not a cameo.
No, he's not a cameo. But not to jump ahead, but Saw Gerrera, do you think he's somebody that comes in like in a 7th episode, right? His first introduction, like, do we get the first 6 episodes out of the way, and he's now at least in the fledgling moments of what's becoming this, Saw Gerrera's group, or I don't want to call it the Rebel Alliance because we know that's going to be in Rebels. So whatever this cell organization is, do you think at that point we get to see him in that part? Or do you think he's going to carry out the rest of the season, or do you think he's somebody that comes in at the very last, 2 episodes, or what do you think?
I would love Saw Gerrera to come in early. So by mid-season, I think that's a really great one to have that be the influential figure that starts to turn Andor into what we become, or what he ends up becoming, at least in the short term. And again, we'll talk about this as the show goes on tonight, but that's where he starts to, those are the tactics that he picks up, and those are the behaviors that he starts to learn and a bit become semi-radicalized. And again, the Andor that we're going to see is not anything close to what we see in Rogue One. And some of that's a maturity standpoint, not necessarily extremism or anything like that, but it's going to be a very different character. And what are the things that he's going to be influenced by? And I think Saw Gerrera is one of those very powerful figures, and very influential figures, especially when it comes to your home being destroyed or your home being invaded and those types of things. Saw Gerrera is very, very passionate speaker with that. And I could see him getting lumped into that crowd. And then later on, as he gets a more mature character, maybe into season 2, again, we start to see him round out a bit and see that there's a better way.
Yeah.
So I very much like, last half of season 1, very focused on the, we always forget the name of Saw Gerrera's group. I remembered it last week and you couldn't remember. Now I can't remember. So you're going to, the Partisans.
Partisans. Yeah. I almost said the pacifists, and I was like, well, that's not the right word.
I almost said the partition. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. So I would love to see the Partisans come into play. And again, because the Rebel Alliance isn't really super organized at this point.
Yeah.
Very localized, very much kind of a resistant cells, so to speak, in that regard, rather than any kind of organization.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
And I don't know what you're talking about, Alan Tudyk, man. He's in the trailer.
Is he really?
He's the dude in the clean room, man. I'm telling you, that's him. I got
what?
pictures.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right. Because I kept focusing on that guy, and I'm like, he looks familiar. Why would they show him? And he's so in front, like he's in the middle of that frame, all the way in the forefront, right? So
heavily de-aged. But I went and found pictures of a young Alan Tudyk, like high school, college years type Alan Tudyk. Yeah.
Okay.
I could see where that's pretty close.
So you're saying K2SO was once a human who then later, as the story progresses, becomes a...
Yeah, he became a Bomar monk and then got infused into KTSO.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, you might want to reach back there and grab that hat off R2D2 while you're at it, by the way.
Just plop this right on here.
There we go. Here we go. Okay, now he's got his tinfoil hat on. And all right, so let's. I guess there's a lot of stuff in here around the Vanity Fair coverage and Diego Luna. I would say, again, we've talked about this story being a migrant story. One of the things that stood out to me, and I don't have the exact quote up here, so I'm going to paraphrase what was said here by Diego Luna and Tony Gilroy. I think both said something to this effect, that the person that we're going to get as Cassian Andor at the very beginning of this series is not the person that we're familiar with when we get to Rogue One. Right? We're going to see that transformational effect that's going to happen. I'm going to probably give some very light spoilers. Again, nothing that's not been disclosed, nothing you can't find online. This is all official stuff, nothing that's been leaked, okay? But one thing they've talked about is Cassian Andor is going to start off as this kind of petty thief, right? Running around the streets, stealing things, and something's going to happen that is going to get him to maybe not fully to the extent of where we see him in Rogue One, but at least get him on board with this idea of a rebellion, right? Get him on board with this idea of the Empire is bad in a way, and I need to do something about it. There's something personal about it, very personal. So much in that this person is willing to risk their entire life for a galaxy of people he does not know, right? There's a cause there. It becomes, like you said, it's an ideal, right? You're not fighting this group of people. You're fighting an ideal of some sort. So any thoughts just going into this of where this is probably what I was going to say for the end, but now that we're talking about it, anything that you want to speculate on as to what could possibly happen to him? I think there's some obvious tropes here, but I want your thoughts first.
I mean, some of it we know, for certain. His homeworld is going to be destroyed, right, by the Empire, and this is his true homeworld. So you've got that on it. Plus, it sounds like maybe we're going to get an invasion that could also kind of do it again. And then again, I think when you're talking about what's maybe obvious is something happens to a family member, and especially if it's a younger sibling, and if he really does have a younger sister, you could see where that would, either she's taken or she's killed or something like that. Again, that's usually these transformative moments where the character has to do something different. They want to just charge in and try to just do everything all at once, but then hopefully they're grabbed and they're caught and they're sat down and said, no, there's a better way of doing this. And, again, that might mean it's Saw Gerrera, though. But again, those are kind of your typical, your really obvious ones that you could pull out and say, these are the things that are going to really change things. But again, I think some of it will be also over time, because if we remember, the Andor family was part of the CIS, right? They were separatists. They supported the separatists. They supported the cause. They believed in it. But as things start to progress and go on, they see the shift when the Empire goes on, and they, likely start to see what that actually means.
Yeah.
And what they were fighting, what they believed in is not what they truly believe. Or what they fought for or what they support is not necessarily what they believe in. Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that idealism and maybe something with the family, with the parents, we've seen this happen over and over before as well. So you have orphans now, and they just have to lean on each other. And again, we've seen, this is Aladdin all over again, right? So this is going to be kind of, Star Wars Aladdin maybe, but, so I mean, those are a few obvious ones I think that you could probably pull out of the air. Was there something less obvious that you were maybe speculating or theorizing on?
Well, to me, it feels like based on the trailer, right? And this is all I'm going off of, honestly. I think there are some
which is very little, yeah.
Which is very little. There's not a lot in there. Although we'll make a lot out of it, right? We're going to make a mountain out of an ant mound here in just a few minutes.
Molehill, yeah.
Oh, molehill. Sorry. I guess I'm not that Texan. But so there are some things that kind of stand out. I think the trope of his family member being impacted in some way is probably enough, right? There's got to be something personal that pulls him into this, and what better way to pull somebody into a war or fight for an ideal than to have a family member that's been hurt or killed. And that could be somebody like his sister, his younger sister, right? They may have a very close relationship. Maybe the parents are orphaned at some point, and because it wouldn't be Star Wars without orphaned children somewhere. But maybe they're separated from the parents, and they end up growing up in the streets, just trying to survive on whatever they can. That's why he, reverts to or goes to a life of petty crime and that sort of thing. I have a feeling when the show opens up, he's probably you shouldn't say.
Kind of sounds like Ezra a bit.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's kind of running around doing these small crimes here and there, or Aladdin. Like Ezra and Aladdin were very similar early on too.
Right.
But I think one thing that would be interesting is because it seems like he does have a lot of skills. He has, I'm assuming he's got a lot of in-depth knowledge around the Empire and how it works. And some of that, I think, when we get to Rogue One, is probably because he is in the trenches. He's been involved now he's getting that intel from everybody else. But I would actually like to see him side with the Empire at first, right? Maybe they catch him and they start I don't want to get too close to like a Han Solo kind of story where he's part of the Empire for a little bit. But, if you think about this big corporation or this Empire, this force coming in, taking over your home world, depleting of it from its natural resources in some way, there's not a lot of room for you to go but join the bad guys. And ideally, maybe that it looks like a on the surface, it looks fine and dandy, right? I'm going to go join this empire. They're the guys with the power. They're the guys with the big guns. You think about in our real world experiences, our real world life right now, a lot of this happens. These warlords come in, they go into these small, impoverished cities, take them over, and suddenly the people that are there that have nothing, they can't make anything from anything really. They go join these groups, right? They get indoctrinated, they become part of that militia, and then they go out and they get power and they get wealth and that sort of thing. So maybe there's a story in regard to some aspect, but then as now that he's over there, if that hits home, where suddenly they kill his his sister or some other personal thing that happens to him as he's a part of that, he realizes, whoa, these are not the guys that I thought. I mean, similar again to Tala. I hate to say that, but this is again what would happen. He would suddenly feel like this is not what I want to do, and this is really corrupt. This is really horrible, and I want to get vengeance or something like vengeance on them. Maybe that's what turns into a life of being rebellious or siding with the guerrilla. I think there's some guerrilla war forces, some freedom fighters that we're going to talk about here in the trailer as well, that he may decide to switch. And then he brings this intel that he's got the inner workings, and that's enough to kind of take him down temporarily. And from there, it just kind of, grows and expands. So
now, do you think that since Cassian and his family grew up in the CAS or were supporters of the CIS, do you think we'll have a different light shed on the Confederacy of Infinite Systems where we actually view them in a more empathetic way of what those systems were really trying to accomplish when you take all of the politics and the Count Dooku manipulation and Palpatine out of it? Do you think we'll get a much different point of view when in contrast with what the Republic becomes in the Empire? Or do you think that it'll just solidify their place as the quote unquote bad guys during the Clone Wars?
I think so. And the reason I say that is because if you think about who's at the head of the Confederacy, who's at the head of the Separatists, right? You think about somebody like Dooku, and we've talked about Dooku many times on this show, and he's not necessarily wrong in some ways, right? He's not necessarily right either, but it's easy to get there and try to and kind of see where he's coming from. Now, the way he goes about it, probably not the best way. But I think the same thing is true here for the Separatists. I think there is a legitimate concern that they have. The way they're going about it is probably not the best way, but can you really, maybe what you're talking to or speaking to is, are we going to see a different point of view where they're being manipulated and they're being coerced into doing things that are not right, not going about it the right way, but they don't really have a choice. And so in that way, I think we could see a different aspect, see that in a different light. And I don't know that if it would give us a lot of sympathy towards them, but I think having somebody like the Andors, part of that group, there's something wholesome about it, right? You would expect at the core, there's something very wholesome about it, or at least genuine about what the effort is, or what their gripe is, or what they feel is, or they're being oppressed or repressed in some way. And so, from that regard, I think you're right. I think we could possibly see them slightly differently, as a result of the show.
Yeah, it popped in my mind because we do get a little bit of that in Brotherhood, where we understand why Kate and Nemoria and how they're affiliated with the CAS and how they're affiliated with the Trade Federation, how the Trade Federation works into all of this, how the new gun rays and all of all the Nemorian people kind of feel about this. And so we get a bit of a different flavor for how that fits in with the galaxy at large, but also really how certain systems view the Trade Federation and the Republic and all these other ones. So it would be interesting if we got it. But again, it would make sense if we didn't as much, because it seems like when we go to the opening of the trailer, that we have more of a village type of lifestyle, presumably well outside the politics of the galaxy.
Yep. There, I was trying to go through here. Just I don't want to. There's a lot of notes here. I would suggest also for anybody that wants to know more about, I guess, behind the scenes type things, without getting into spoilers too much, take a look at the Anthony Breznican interview that he did. This came out when we were at Celebration, so that week of the 27th, around that time, and it's on Vanity Fair. So if you go out there, it's a great article. Lots of really good insight from Tony Gilroy, especially. There's some Diego Luna quotes in there, but I mean, Gilroy's kind of the showrunner for this, and he's the primary writer. So there's a lot of really good.
Luna's probably terrified of accidentally leaking something out too. So
yeah,
whereas Tony Gilroy's just happy to keep talking.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. He said a lot of things, honestly, things that that whole bit about him being kind of a petty thief at the beginning was I think shook a lot of people. Like, whoa, time out. You're like talking about what's going to happen in the first episode, and it's so light. I mean, and it is in the first episode, so I would consider it a spoiler for anybody that wants to go into this thing pure. However, I don't think that's enough to really substantially change, the outcome of the series or blow any kind of big secrets. In fact, I think it just adds to the allure of what's going to happen here.
Right. I mean, and potentially that could be the first 5 minutes of the first episode for all we know. Right. So I don't. It's a good starting place, but it's not the story.
Right.
Right. It's just it's where someone's at a certain point in time, and I don't think it's going to. I don't think anything like that minor is going to really ruin it for anybody. It really is the entire journey, and that's the unique thing about this is that this really is the entire journey of these 2 seasons. That's going to be the interesting part. There's not going to be any particular moment when we looked at Obi-Wan Kenobi. What's the first thing that everybody pops out? It was like, okay, it's got to be Obi-Wan and Vader, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sure, there are other things that come up inside of all of that, especially as they unravel the story and present it to us. But this one, the journey is the story.
Yeah.
Right. We want to know how he gets there. And we've got 24 episodes to show how he gets to Rogue One. So it is all about the process and all about that journey. And I think that's exciting because you have a lot of time to really mature that character and show that direction, that arc for him.
Oh, man, I'm excited. Let's do this. Let's talk about the trailer then.
Yeah.
Let's move into it. We've got a lot to talk about. For anybody that's listening to the podcast, I'm going to apologize in advance because we're going to actually pull up the trailer and go frame by frame in some cases.
That's a good segue, Albert. For those that are listening to the podcast, we do have a corresponding live stream Tuesdays and Thursdays.
All right, so I pulled this up. Now, before we get into this, though, a couple things. Number one, I want to just quickly talk about the voiceover because I'm not going to play the audio because then it'll get flagged and we got to contest it and all that kind of crazy stuff. So it starts off with Cassian saying they're so proud of themselves, so fat and satisfied. Okay, that's kind of funny. Mon Mothma says they're everywhere. They're watching me now. Luthen, Stellan Skarsgård, says soon enough these days will end. There will be no rules going forward. And then it ends with Marva saying people are standing up. That's what a reckoning sounds like. And of course, we see her say that last line there at the very end.
Right.
Okay, but let's go back to and if we can remember to come back to that stuff, cool. If not, we'll go on because I think a picture speaks 1,000 words in a lot of this stuff here. All right, let me get this off my chest. This opening scene with the guy at the bell, the bell boy, drummer, whatever he is.
You call him Little Drummer Boy.
Little Drummer Boy in the show notes. I'm going to put these show notes out on Patreon so that they can kind of get a peek at what this looks like. Because I think there's some funny stuff in here if I do say so myself. But this...
You are your own biggest fan.
Exactly. And trust me, I've got my own Patreon. There's this particular opening scene does seem or feel or look like the volume. Like the tower itself, and I've got it up now, but the tower itself, and let me just move forward, advance it just a second, because at this point it doesn't. Right here. I'm going to pause it here. But now he's about to take his first gong or ring or whatever you want to call that. But it looks like this is definitely in the forefront. I just don't know that all of that down there is actually real. That would be a very massive set if it was. And There are people moving down there. So it could be CGI, of course. But I don't know. There's something about this, and maybe it's just because my mind's playing tricks on me now that we've seen so many series now with the volume. But do you think this is part of the volume? And here's the better question, do you think this is part of the show? Because I have a feeling this was created for the trailer only. I don't know that we would see this. And there's some reasons why, but I'll shut up and let you speak.
I think this might be part of it. I mean, what this actually reminds me of is basically, the church bell waking everybody up.
Okay.
It's just the manual version of it, right? Or the cartoon kind of guy, banging everything. And I think part of the set is probably real. Now, is everything real as the further back it goes? Absolutely not. There's no chance, right? But you see lights coming on. You see people emerging. It doesn't appear to be any kind of emergency type of scene, but it definitely, to me, it seems like it's at dawn, and this is the, official wake up bell for everyone. And he's just so dramatic about it, right? I mean, all of the motions just act like he's, again, like just tick tock. He's got the internal clock in his head.
Yeah,
and that's how they wake up every morning. So I think this could. I wouldn't mind if this was in the actual show.
So this feels like work a droid can do. Number one, but to your point, like he's not in a hurry, and when I first saw the trailer, I was thinking, oh, he's warning the bells, right? There's an invasion coming. Right? There's something happening here. But then if you look at it, like you said, to your point, he's not moving very quickly. right?
Oh, and he's got earmuffs. He's got his ear protectors on too.
Yeah, it's probably pretty loud in there. But why would they have this guy? He's nasty. Like, if he's all dirty, his face is all dirty, teeth are yellow. I mean, I want to talk, but still, right? I mean, he's not the cleanest knife in the drawer there.
It's a working class community down there.
Okay, fair enough. So I don't know. There's something that just looks weird about this shot for me, and I just wonder how it fits into the whole story. Maybe this is part of the opening. We'll come back to this here in a little bit because the guy is just banging away at this drum quite often here. He rings the bell 3 times before it cuts, and in the show notes I had put that 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, 3 if by space. I mean, he rings it 3 times, and suddenly, later on it looks a little bit more dramatic. But if it is some type of warning bell, then maybe it is because they're coming in a different way. I don't know. I'm just trying to draw on the whole American Revolution War here.
Right.
Okay.
I could see where this would be like once we get past maybe some of the sequences where Andor is a kid and we see what happens to his world, and then we kind of flash over to a more now a type of environment or a time setting, and this is how we would open up that episode or that scene within the same episode that shows the time change and again the awakening of the city in this more current time frame.
Yeah, where's hard counter? Because this is I like the engineering here that went into this drum. By the way, it's like a single sheet of metal. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's really kind of cool. It wraps around.
Yeah,
inside and everything. Yeah, it's a very unique anvil of sorts.
There you go. See, that's the kind of coverage you're going to get here. You're not going to get that anywhere else, right? The dissection of the bill.
That's right.
Okay, this is obviously, I think, a scene that caught a lot of people's attention for a lot of different reasons. But number one, this is definitely not a volume set. This looks like it's filmed on location somewhere. We've got a river. I'm assuming this is going to be, Andor. This is one of the flashbacks or earlier on where we're seeing him, his family, the village that he grew up in. I'm assuming this is Andor. Close enough.
I think so.
You can still hear the little boy here. Now, if you look down the right-hand corner here, and they showed her just before this, so you can kind of see her here next to her. There's a little girl with some curly hair that's standing next to her as they're kind of cowering in fear and standing up, and they've heard a big noise. You can kind of see them. They're all cowering at first, right? So I'm assuming some explosion's gone off or something.
Well, and
right?
you can actually see it in the sky when the ship is going across. I think I had paused it when I was watching the video, and you can actually see an explosion behind it cascading away from the ship.
Oh, okay. Cool. I didn't check. I didn't see that.
You can probably see it right here. It's right after it emerges from the trees, right there. You can see there's smoke. Yeah, you can see it right next to the tree limb there. I'm pointing at my screen like anybody can see me pointing, but right there. You can kind of see it looks like an explosion.
Yeah, I can see where you're pointing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so she's standing right here. This little girl is with the curly hair. I'm assuming this is his sister, and who we're talking about. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. But Andrea Ariona, I believe, is her name. Mm-hmm. But you can kind of see her as well. Just the very top of her head is right here. I thought another thing was funny. Look at this little girl right here on the left-hand side. She looks right at the camera. I don't think she's supposed to. But anyways, that was fun. So yeah, I mean, I think this is, and of course we're burying the lead here, right? There's this massive ship that's kind of coursing through the air here. It looks like it's been shot down, presumably, or it's going down in flames, or literally is going down in flames. But do you think this is something the Empire shot down? Do you think this was a coming in from outer space or something? But to me, whatever this is, this does feel kind of like that call to action, right? The Empire has now come into their world, if it's not already, but it's having an impact on their lives, and their lives are forever going to be changed.
Well, I always try to piece together where in the timeline do we think this would actually fit. So if he is, how old do you think he is here? He's maybe 12?
I'm going to say, yeah, a young teenager, 12, maybe 11.
Right. So when we fast forward to maybe the earlier age of Andor, we think he's going to be 17, 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah, I'd say that. Let's just call it 20 to be safe.
Okay, so let's just say there's about a 7 or 8 year difference between the time frame when we're going to get the big chunk of the story for season 1 and where we start here.
Mm-hmm.
So that would bring us. I mean, yeah, you're kind of right in the wheelhouse of the uptick of the Empire, and so it's not Clone Wars or anything like that. So clearly there's something that's going on. But the other thing about this, though, what if it's not a ship being shot down and it is some sort of weapon? I mean, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It does seem like it is a ship going down in flames.
Yeah.
But
that would be interesting. But again, massive, it's like ballistic missile of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, it would be massive. And again, we know his homeworld was destroyed. We don't exactly know what that means. I'm assuming it doesn't mean that it was obliterated, because that would be a little on the nose. But maybe it is. But I think it's one of these is this something that does crash and cause some sort of natural disaster, less so than the Empire invading and decimating it? Because I think some of it is, what are these villages going to do unless the Empire is just coming through and taking resources? We know they strip resources from colonies and from planets. So
yeah, Ahsoka novel was a big example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we've seen it a bunch of times. And so, is this the beginning of that type of thing here, or is this just a rescue ship that's again being chased, and it's just the unfortunate side effect is it lands on this planet?
Right. Yeah.
But again, there has to be a reason for why they would tear the planet apart, unless this is a high value target that they're chasing.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it looks like you said there's an explosion that happens on that. So, maybe if it was a missile of some sort, it was shot down. It doesn't look like a ship that I'm familiar with in Star Wars.
No, it's very cylindrical.
Yep.
Yeah, very difficult to make out any of the different protrusions around the ship.
So,
what would be really interesting, though, is if this was some sort of, they're chasing down like a rebel cell type of thing. And like you said, they're chasing someone and they just annihilate everything in their path as they're hunting whoever these folks are, if they survive this crash.
Yeah.
But again, it looks like it's going to hit pretty far away, though.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything close. And so you would think that, if they are going to be brought into the war. So your point's well taken, though. I want to come back to it. You said, the world is obliterated. And that could mean, again, I don't think literally, but if there was a cataclysmic event of some sort as a result of this or whatever else, and they've had to migrate, they had to pick up and leave because, tides are rising or weather's impacted or whatever else. And from that perspective, yeah, maybe it is obliterated. The one that's probably on the nose is the Empire coming in and stripping resources and enslaving these people or turning them into, indoctrined workers of some sort, right? That would be a level of oppression that would cause them to have to get up and leave or, fall in line, which I don't think they're going to want to do, right? So
right.
I can see all those. I can see all those kind of scenarios really playing out, but it's really hard to tell at this point. But definitely this has an impact on his life, right? I mean, he's staring at this thing going, wow, what is that? And these guys are not, it looks like he's coming from a village that has no technology. Like you look at everything in the back, it's all made from trees and vines and, the clothes. No, there's no tech on any of the characters that we see here in this opening shot of any sort. Which
I think is kind of cool to see in Star Wars, because we don't really see it that often anymore. Even the Tuskens had technology, right?
Yeah, they did. I'm trying to think, like the last example. Wasn't Phasma's family?
Yes, that was probably the purest. That was probably the purest example of it. Yeah, because they were very. Oh man, yeah, barbaric. Yeah, barbaric. I think primal is probably a much better term than barbaric.
Yep.
I think certain aspects were a bit barbaric, but I think primal is very accurate.
Right.
Again, live off the land. You have to go get and take everything that you want, for good or bad.
Yep, like Ted Nugent style.
There you go.
This okay. So the next scene is interesting for a couple reasons. One,
when we get Wally.
It's hard not to look at this and think Wally, because there's a junkyard everywhere, and you've got this android robot running around in here. So short of a cricket on its back somewhere, or a cockroach, as the case were for Wally. But this does look like a droid, and some people had said this is a vehicle. It's too wobbly for me to think it's a vehicle of some sort. Perspective's thrown off a little bit here. This is one of those scenes, again, that it looks like everything in the forefront's real, everything in the background could be CGI or could be the volume. I don't know.
Probably so. But again, it's more
set, so we know it's not real, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, and what's interesting is what's in the background, though, because it looks like it's not all junk everywhere. Yeah. This appears to be, some sort of scaffolding type of structures for construction, or, I mean, what this reminds me of is, like, of course, I live in Texas, so I'm used to seeing oil platforms being built on the coast or being shipped into Texas City and then things like that. So it reminds me very mental images of oil rigs being brought to shore and getting ready to deploy out to the Gulf of Mexico. And so it very much reminds me of that. Yeah. And also some of the imagery we've seen from maybe from Solo as well.
Well, and we'll get a better shot of this in a little bit. But I think you're right. To me, this looks like an assembly for
some sort of assembly
ships.
yard. Yeah.
Because if you look in the back there, and we'll get a better shot of this a little bit later, but it does look like up here.
Some engines back there, yeah.
Yep. Yep, some kind of big turrets in the back. There are engines, thrusters of some sort, and it looks like it's kind of in the process of being built. So, and if you
Agreed.
look underneath right here, this looks to me, again, better shots later, but this looks to me as though the city that we saw that guy in the bell tower earlier on. There's a
Yeah.
couple. There's actually two shots that come from different angles, and you kind of see that same structure landscape in the background, and with this massive scaffolding on the top of that plateau as well. All right, so I think those are all kind of interconnected. This just may be where all the junk goes to. Whenever, I don't know if they're taking things apart, or they're moving it all over to. They're not leaving it where the big city is, but they're moving it over here in this area. I just don't know what significance or role this junkyard plays. It was enough they decided to show it in the trailer, though.
Do you think there's any chance that this is the same world that we see young Cassian in his village in many years later after the Empire has set up shop and completely junked the place?
That'd be crazy. I don't know. Let's go back. Do we see a plateau here where that could have been used?
I mean, there's hills and mountains and stuff, so
Sure.
may it's possible.
It's possible.
Anyway, I think it would be an interesting point of view reference of
Oh, yeah.
what is represent destroyed, but we also know that Cassian is going to have an adopted homeworld as well. So that might be a bit far fetched, but it would be interesting and be in line with the Empire and a general Empire storytelling that they take and they strip it, and what used to be a very beautiful terrain is now very industrialized.
Yeah, and I would say that if that were the case, then yes, the Empire is here strictly to strip this planet of. There's something very valuable about this planet and resource wise, and they are just mining the crap out of it. Similar again to what was happening in the Ahsoka novel, where they were taking everything and taking those people and putting them to work, enslaving them to work for the Empire, all because they were trying to build a Death Star, right? They were going to need to ramp up their resources in order to start building this.
Yeah, foodstuffs, I think, right?
Yep.
Something like that.
Well, yeah, that one was about food, right? But they were mining kyber crystals on side of that. They were talking about ramping up for materials other places, and it was all kind of pointing to they were trying to get all the resources that were going to be necessary to run a massive space station of that size, which think about in terms of scale is huge. It's absolutely huge, galactically huge. No pun intended.
Sure.
This robot, any idea? I mean, is this just like a kind of a scenery robot? Just goes around taking a junk?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it really does seem like it's just. I mean, patrolling is probably not the right word.
Yeah,
but just kind of out there scanning. It's a very odd thing, though. Yeah,
to have that robot in the junkyard.
Yeah, because I mean, again, it makes sense as there's nobody out there. But again, is it looking for people? Is it just kind of a basic patrol, looking for people who might be, taking extended lunch breaks or maybe venturing a little further than they're supposed to, like running away and deserting.
Mm-hmm.
But
the last thing I want to say about this scene, excuse me, there's a really cool scene later where the LAATs are coming in, and they probably have a new term because they look modified or updated in some way.
Yeah, they don't have the big wings anymore.
Yeah, but those drop ships that are coming in, and they're coming in from a different angle almost, because you can see that's where you can see the engines really well. So we'll come back to that in a little bit, but it looks like they're on an approach vector to this area for some reason. All right, I'm calling this next scene the Tesla lab. And this is where you said this was Alan Tudyk here on the front.
I don't know. I mean, when you freeze it here, it doesn't look like him as much.
Oh, I'll just keep moving it. How about that? Does it look better here or here?
I don't know. When I froze it, I'm
here,
like, man,
or
who
here.
is? I mean, it just looks so much like him, but
I
that could be purely coincidental.
I was online trying to scrub for anybody because again, he's so prominent in this shot that you would think it would be somebody that would be named. Got some pretty kicking sideburns, though, I'll say that.
He does, yeah. So more importantly, what are they building here?
These look like robot parts to me, robotics of some sort, android parts.
They don't necessarily look like droids, though, do they? I mean, they look quite, much more rigid than a droid would be.
But what if these are like the undercarriage or part components? Like if you flip this thing around, is that the base of like an Imperial probe droid? I don't know. I'm making things up. I have no idea. But it looks like these are like you can't really tell on the one on the left here. But if you look at the one on the back there on the right, it's got like 2, 4, 6 legs, arms, if you will. You see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't have my probe droid in front of me. I've got a little model of it, but beyond that, I mean, it's hard to say. Again, I think what's more important here is that something has caught their attention, right? They all look kind of shocked or. Now we see this outfit a little bit later.
Yeah, that seems like a very similar outfit we see when they're walking through these tunnel type systems.
And we'll come back to it in a little bit, but I think these are either prisoners that they're making license plates, right, or doing something for the Empire,
Right.
or they're conscripted servers or conscripted men of some sort or soldiers of some sort,
Indentured servants to an extent.
Yeah, they don't wear shoes, but more on that later.
Or they just wear the soft shoes. They don't have the ones with soles in it. They just have the socks, the little booties.
All right. Well, we'll come back to these guys. I don't know. It's hard to determine what they're exactly doing, but it does feel like it is some kind of an assembly plant, and they all seem to be doing adopting the Ford methodology of constructing.
It's so THX 1138 inspired,
it really
though.
is.
The number in the background and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. The lighting, that pure
very
white
sterile,
space, sterile environment. Yep.
Yeah, it's sterile clothing. Everything's very bland. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next scene. And this was the first shot of our freedom fighters, for lack of a better term. There's a group of 4 here with Cassie and Andor in the front. Now, when I first saw this, it looked like I thought his hands were like bound, right? Because you can see his hands down into the front. I think he's just holding a weapon.
Digging, or holding onto a pouch or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's being bound. And I say that because in this scene, he's running with a rifle. You see that?
Yeah.
He's right here in the back on the very next scene here.
I don't think they're going to take very much cover with that little, that horse bound. What is the hitching post? Looks like a little hitching post there.
Yeah. For those of you that are not from Texas, a hitching post is what you tie your horse to.
Right.
But again, takeaway here, and this is where I wanted to point this out. At the very beginning of this trailer, it's very stylistic. There's a lot of scenes where people are looking directly at the camera. We pointed out one that I was like, oh, it's kind of funny. It's a mistake. I don't know that it was a mistake, because there are other shots like this and a couple more here in just a second where someone's looking directly at the camera. And then you conversely, on the back end of this trailer, we get a section of shots where people are looking away from the camera and we only see their backs. Right. I don't know what the symbolism is there. I haven't really put too much thought into it, but it is stylistic choice, consciously made, without any doubt in my mind, that they did that for this trailer.
Yeah.
So,
and again, it looks like when she does look back, she sees something, because in the next scene, the next frame, we see them starting to run.
Yeah. And they're running to hide their guns, because if you look at this guy here, he's going to kneel down right here. He lifts up the blanket as though he's about to shove his rifle underneath there. Yeah. And then we get this shot where they cover up what we're calling the AK-47s. They're more like AK-46s. That's not really a thing, but they're a little bit, they got that snub rifle kind of thing on the front there.
Right.
And we'll break that down here in a little bit, because I got some questions about that. And I know there's been some discourse around discord around what and why they had those types of weapons.
Zippers, buttons, and bullets.
Yep. Yeah, ballistic weapons. Oh my.
Yeah.
But all of these characters show up a little bit later. This guy with the red hat here, he comes up a little bit later. This is the tall black man that we see in a couple of different shots, and this is the bald-headed guy here on the far left-hand side.
Where'd the woman go, though?
Yeah, I don't know. And so what I was thinking is, they may just be standing around waiting. There's also this blonde freedom fighter here. She comes up a little bit later in 2 other scenes. You can only see the back of her head here, but they both disappear from the scene. So I don't know if they run one direction and these guys run in this direction to hide the weapons. It's hard to tell. But it definitely looks like they're not supposed to have these things. Or, who knows? Maybe there's we'll come to this in a little bit. I want to talk about this, because later on we're going to see what I think a lot of people are saying is the Empire. I'm not exactly sure that I think we get to see Imperial agents and we see stormtroopers. Yes, 100%. However, I think there are shots in here where we're seeing kind of like a local authority group, right? Not necessarily part of the Empire. And this is what they could be running from at this point.
I mean, they could be fighting against, potentially, rebel cells too. I mean, we don't really know which side of the war they're on right now.
No, that's a good point.
Or whether they know who is who at any given moment and a given time. And again, it's difficult when we're really flipping between timelines and Cassian's life right now too, from when he's young to when he's older, and then we're going to dial back to when he's probably a mid-teenager, late teenager. So we're kind of fluctuating back and forth here. So it's difficult to understand where they're at and just where the galaxy's at and who is where, throughout all of this stuff. But again, it's very green and lush. So it doesn't quite look like the same as the industrial planet, or at least the industrial area that we've seen a couple times now.
Yeah. Yeah, that would, if that isn't the case, this does look similar, at least in landscape, to some of those opening shots with his him as the younger Andor
Yeah.
and his family.
A bit more, yeah.
This next shot is the one that we get one of the few times that someone speaks in the trailer, like directly in shot here. But this gentleman's running here with a green jacket on. He runs over to the boy and screams, what does he say? Go, come on.
Yeah, go, come on, yeah.
And then he starts ringing this or banging this little thing here, which looks like kind of a warning system, crude.
So do we think that was Andor as well, as a kind of a mid-teenager?
This does not look like him. It could, I mean, maybe you always kind of have to give them some wiggle room when they start casting younger people because it's just so hard, right?
Right. But of course, it could just be any other kid too.
Yeah. Now this is one where I think some people took issue with. I know they took issue with it because I was fighting the good fight for all the people in favor of like that were reasonable. But this
that was your first mistake.
Yeah, right. But this came up because there's a hood on what looks to be like, quote, an Adidas type sweater. And I get what they were going for here, right? If you think about like if you've ever been to Mexico or a lot of South American countries really in general, or even in Europe, soccer's huge. And I'm not saying they're promoting soccer or anything like that, but stylistically, that look where you see younger kids, adolescents wearing this type of garb, because it is popular or it just their hand-me-downs or whatever they've been able to get. And this thing looks like it's dingy and has been through hell and back already, right? But the problem that a lot of people were having was that why are there hoods in Star Wars like this on why does it look like a hoodie? And I'm thinking, at what point in your mind did you think that this massive galaxy that's out there, that at some point of all the billions of people that live in here, all the different cultures at various levels of technological advancement, that someone's going to just think, you know what? I'm going to stick a hood on a long sleeve shirt and it just happens to look like a hoodie or a sweatshirt of some sort, right? Throw away all the other stuff I said at the very beginning. The probability that this piece of clothing looks like this or a piece of clothing looks like this in a galaxy far, far away is pretty high. It's high, very high, to quote K2SO. So I don't understand what the problem was with the hoodie, other than, oh, it looks like it's got 3 stripes on the sleeves, and therefore it looks like it's promoting Adidas of some sort. But
yeah, but again, gosh, if people get out of their own way, it's the imagery of this. How many times have you and I seen? I mean, we live here in Texas, which has a huge Mexican population. We see a lot of inspiration in some of our own culture down here with Mexico. How often have we seen imagery of kids playing in their neighborhoods or in the streets that don't look all that dissimilar to this, playing soccer, kicking the ball? I mean,
yep.
This is the imagery here is a very clear connection to these types of neighborhoods and these types of communities.
Yep.
And so, God, get over the hoodie, people. I mean, God,
I know. Get over yourself.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, just accept what they're trying to show you and what we're trying to see here,
No, you're 100% right. This is, and that's
let's focus on what he's beating this thing with, because I mean, I want one of these. I want this for a doorbell.
Yeah, it looks effective. When he's banging this thing, we don't have the audio, but when he's banging, it doesn't sound like it's very loud. So I mean, he's alerting everybody within a 5-foot radius. I don't know how many people are kind of hearing this now. So, and yes, hoodies are now canon. So thank you, William Jackson, for asking the question. They are officially canon, and we're all better for that. But
the real question is, which team is he rocking there with the badge on there, right?
I don't know what that is.
It looks like Univision.
There you go. It's probably one of them, or Galavision, one of the two.
Yep.
Which is a great show, by the way. And as crazy as it sounds, or I shouldn't even talk about this, but as crazy as it sounds, like I grew up with that on all the time, all the time. It was just on in the background. Mom was always watching it. And now in my later years, I'll go and turn it on and watch it. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is the stuff that I hated watching, but I got suckered in and indoctrinated into some of this stuff. And now I just unconsciously watch these shows from time to time. So, but more on that later. We'll get, maybe when we do that special Andor show, I'll bring that story up. But let's talk about this one, because here we go. This is the shot where you can see these drop ships coming in. Heavily
armored drop ships. I mean, these are not the same things we saw in the Clone Wars a dozen or 20 years earlier.
Right.
I mean, these things are much narrower wings, but severely armored. I mean, these things are built. Yeah. So, I mean, clearly troop transport, they appear to be troop transports.
You think about the evolution of these two. Like if you think about like where we were by the time we get to like Book of Boba Fett, and they were coming in. They don't even have wings, so it's almost the evolution of these things. Is the wings kept getting smaller and smaller, and they just become these kind of shuttles that look like what we see in Book of Boba Fett or
look like Star Tours. Yeah,
right, Star Tours exactly.
Right. But again, like you were saying before, in the background though,
yes,
you can see on the horizon all of these structures, these construction type structures or whatever they might be, and so clearly this could be definitely some sort of attack.
Yeah.
And again, I'm guessing resources maybe. And again, you see the whole town there in the forefront too.
Yeah, like this is the town. Imagine the bell tower. Perspective-wise, is probably over here on the far right-hand side, or it could be on the far left-hand side if we had like a reverse
I guess
shot.
It's going to be on one or the other, either the left or the right.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Let's cover all the bases. Let's speculate.
Yep, we got that one right too. But I think they are coming in now. The question, like the question here is, are they about to shoot this town up or whatever? And because I say that, and then you cut to the next scene, and again, we know that in trailers, especially Star Wars trailers, they like to deceive us and splice these two shots together that have no actual meaning, but our brains naturally want to pair them up, and that's what I'm doing here. But if this is the aftermath of some sort, right, where now they've gone through and they've blown up, and these are the relief workers that are coming in to pick out the survivors and all that. I mean, there's like shades of 9/11 here. You can see things burning still in the background there. There's relief workers, some guys screaming for more help. I don't really see any civilians so much. Maybe we're up here on the hill potentially, but definitely something happened. And it's hard not to think that those dropships came in and attacked a city or attacked. Maybe this is the stuff on the plateau up here, where these are ships that are being built, and the Empire wanted to ensure that those never were built or finished, and who knows where they were.
Well, you see a big chunk on the right there on the right side there. Yeah, I mean that's a big chunk of something. If for those listening, it kind of looks like it's not, but like the front of the X-wing, it's just that cylindrical type of shape. And it looks like it's just completely broken off, but whatever that might be.
Yeah, I used to work with a guy that looked just like this, by the way.
That's probably him.
It probably is. I'll ask him.
Yeah. Tell him if you can get that hat. It's pretty wicked.
Here's the drummer boy again.
Yep. Still drumming away.
Still banging away on that drum. Or the gong, or whatever this thing is. This next shot, excuse me.
On-car plot?
Well, it's got the slot down there. And I said it was a bank teller of some sort, or maybe it's just a storefront. It's hard to tell. But this looks like... I mean, the fact that they've got these, I'm going to call them storm shutters. I don't know what that would be, right? But it definitely looks like this is not, they're used to this, right? He's dropping, or well, no, let me back up.
I mean, they look kind of like, it looks like kind of like the security barriers you brought down.
Yeah.
The metal fences or, what are they called? The gates that they bring down. Yep.
Yeah, so it could be that, right? It could just be simply they're locking up before they go, but it does look like they're in a hurry. Looks like they're rushing.
In a hurry.
Yeah, looks like the Empire is about to attack them in some way. Okay, now here's the shot that was interesting too.
Yeah, this one's fun. Yeah.
So this lady, I think, is the blonde-haired freedom fighter that I called earlier in the episode, and she has this really snarky look on her eye here in just a second. Like these stormtroopers are walking by, she's avoiding eye contact, kind of trying to mind her own business, but
it's like a stakeout almost too.
Yeah, it looks like she's up to something, right?
And those do look like stormtroopers, not clone troopers.
Exactly. We get a better look of those guys. We get a better look of the phase of stormtrooper a little bit later as well. It's kind of they're in like transition right now between what we saw at the end of Clone Wars and kind of leading into what we see in Rebels.
I actually think we're seeing two different timelines again.
Okay,
I think we do. Yeah, we'll look at, because I think you could see in the background of another shot they were actually stormtroopers. Where the scene I think you're thinking was they're definitely clone troopers.
Yeah. Oops, sorry, I went back to the lotto ticket area here. Okay, so this is all right. So the next one we've got, I called this Hello There because I really didn't have a good name for this, but this is where we get our first look at Kyle Solar, who we talked about earlier. He's the gentleman that's standing right here in the front. Again, he was in some of these periodic or period pieces, television shows, movies, that kind of thing. But this is where I felt like a lot of people were saying this is the Empire. This looks nothing like Empire, at least that we're aware of, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember them wearing blue and orange, but
I mean, even the hats.
Local security or local, like
authority.
A Corsac type of thing. Yeah, like a local force. Yeah.
Right. which would make sense. I mean, you would think that in some areas, I mean, the Empire, although it's ruling everyone or it's starting to extend their grip on the galaxy, there are still local authorities here. And so there
Sure.
could be a story here where these guys are after Cassie and Andor. They could be working for the rebellion, or excuse me, working for the Galactic Empire. Maybe they've come in and said, "Hey, you guys are the boots on the ground. We need your help," and they're just the arm, the strong arm men to come and enforce the rule and law of the Empire at this point. And they may have some intelligence on some of these, bad apples or bad actors, according to the Empire. Somebody like Marva, who we see here, who's answered the door. I'm pretty sure this is Marva. She's got the crazy haircut, right? She's got the I was going to say Albert Einstein, but that's probably not the word I was looking for. But you can tell by the vest that she's got on. She's got that kind of beige vest, the maroon sleeves. We'll see that in a little bit. But they look like they've come to her to get information, or maybe take her in as a prisoner of some sort.
I like how the patrol guys, they look like cops because they've got the little walkie-talkie on their shoulders. They just kind of talk into it.
Yep. No body cams. I didn't see that. They are wearing body armor, though. That's clearly body armor of some sort.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what she's done here, but they have come looking for information.
And they brought a bit of a force. I mean, it looks like they've got at least half a dozen there.
Yeah, well, they're cops. I mean, they all, they're not doing anything anyway. So they all just kind of show up.
Oh, gosh.
It's usually how it happens.
We love our law enforcement.
We do. Okay, so we finally get our first shot of Cassie and Andor formally, a little bit older here. Facial hair is just coming in, so we're thinking, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, be really speaking your language, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Not coming in, but over around the face, the mouth area. But
definitely looks like he's very young. I mean, you would think 1920, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think they de-aged him in some way? I don't think they did.
I mean, he looks like he comes across as younger, and he usually has a lot of the scruff. So maybe when he shaves, it's younger. But to me, it definitely looks like he's been smoothed out a touch.
Yep.
How old is Diego Luna?
I think he's 39, 40.
Oh, wow.
He's older.
Yeah.
So he's like 10 years older than I am. So probably about 30.
I'm going to guess they airbrushed a little bit here. Yeah.
He's 42.
Oh, there you go. And again, so right here, so look at these stormtroopers in the back. I think those are clearly stormtroopers.
Yes. As we know them.
As we know them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But later on, I think
later on we'll see a different one. Yeah.
A different version of them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts, speculation here? Because I mean, he's hiding for cover, or he's doing one of two things. Either he's ducking for cover because he's being wanted, which I don't think is the case, because these guys seem to be just on a patrol of some sort. Or it looks like he's hiding, playing hide and seek, trying to get to, I don't know, maybe something there in the background, or just trying to get past them, waiting for them to go by. So he's sneaking around of some sort. So this could be, maybe it is around the time that he's still doing petty things. Maybe this is just after he was pulled into what, his rebel cell, if you will. And this is his first mission, or he's been tasked with doing something. This is the first time we see him. But I don't know if there's if you got any other theories as to what it is. But he's definitely on the trying to hide from them at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he could be an independent contractor at this point too, and just trying to make a living, scratch things together, and avoiding anybody that even appears to be law enforcement or an authority.
Yeah,
and he's just up to no good riffraff.
And remember, your taxes are higher as an independent contractor. Always, generally speaking. Well, yeah, always.
True. And there's no medical coverage. So
no medical coverage. You'll have to figure that on your own.
Yeah.
All right. So this next scene, I think, has been.
I don't think that's the top of his priority, but yeah.
Probably not. No, I would agree. No. Okay. So this scene is where I think a lot of people got it wrong. And what I mean by that is I saw a lot of comments about this being the Imperial Senate. And
gosh, no.
Well, and that, and I agree. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody, because I mean, everybody was seeing this trailer for the first time, and of course, we get all kinds of stuff wrong, most things wrong. But I do think that this is probably it's some brain trust of some sort at a galactic level, right? We've got the pristine, sterile environment once again that we saw earlier. I don't know if it's an extension of that. I think this, coupled with the scene in the lab. And then later on, when we see what looks to be underground kind of, I don't know, buildings of some sort, underwater buildings of some, I think it's all related in some way. It's hard to tell, but nonetheless, in the middle of this room, this does look like to be a holo projector down there. So potentially, there probably is someone that pops up. And I want to speculate on who could also pop up in this scene. But we cut over here directly to this gentleman. And this is the actor that is Anton Lesser, that I mentioned earlier. So although he's never not been given an official name for his character, this is clearly him. And his rank, at least as of based on Rogue One rankings, he is of a admiral rank, the 5 Blue.
Right.
And this, oh my gosh, doing the research on this stuff is just it kills me. Like we're so, and I'm sorry, this sounds petty, but there's like so many inconsistencies around the rankings for the Imperial officers. And
especially over the decades.
yes, absolutely. And not to bring this up because we always do, but like they're totally different than they were in the 1987 role playing game. Okay, just for the record, totally different, totally different.
I was wondering how you were going to fit that in this episode.
I got to get it in here somewhere, but
wow, I should not have doubted you.
But these and now like the way they've kind of, I wouldn't say retcon, but the way they've explained this is, well, things change and the Empire was always in flux, and so the rankings change and yada yada yada. But if you go look and just type in, I want to look and see there's no consistency. It depends on when, what time frame of that 40 years that the Empire was in power. At any span of about 5 years, there could be different ranks and insignia that are used to represent those ranks. But at least as of this, if it is a Rogue One rank insignia, which I believe it is, this would make this person an admiral of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too. I mean, when you see the whites come out, usually that designates very high-ranking figures anyway, especially in Star Wars. I mean, we've seen Director Krennic, who had a director role, but again, in a more militaristic aspect, any kind of admiral. We know that Grand Admiral Thrawn was also in whites, so there could be other very high-ranking senior officials. Now, I also thought maybe this could be meeting of regional governors, but I know that governors, but I think the governors typically still wore grays. At least in Rebels, I think they did.
Yeah,
so again, and I think historically throughout, I think even throughout the Empire in totality, they probably did. But again, things could be changing. They could be more formal. I don't know. But again, this definitely seems a bit like a strategy meeting or a war room, if you will, of where they're going to, like you said, they're going to get some sort of communication and they can sit there and debate and see what they're going to do for whatever fight they're fighting.
Yeah. And I would agree. This seems like a war room of sorts. These definitely are admirals, high-ranking officials of some sort. I mean, it could be an officers' club, officers' room where they're communing for whatever reason. But I think the more intriguing question here is, we've got
who's going to pop up in the middle?
Exactly. We've got a holo projector right in the middle. I don't think they would throw that in there without using it, right, from a storytelling perspective. Yeah. But because it would be a holo projected image and not necessarily an actor physically, there could be a lot of possibilities.
Oh my gosh, you could do Krennic. You could do Thrawn. Yep. You could do Vader or the
Tarkin.
Emperor. Tarkin would be another good one because they've got the model from Rogue One, and that would be a direct tie-in with Rogue One as well, just like Krennic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, gosh, you have so many options out there. But again, I think when you have this group of people, it seems like has to be someone very top tier, a Grand Admiral or someone who, because the admirals are, I mean, we have to remember it's chain of command with the Empire as well, right? The admirals aren't going to go and talk to just any commonplace lieutenant, right? Unless it's in the kind of the standard operating of whatever their ship they're on or whatever they're doing. But in this type of thing, it'd have to be someone else very senior, if not a higher elevated position.
Got it. No, I would disagree. I would disagree.
Who's your money on? If you had to pick one, who's your wished pick, and then who do you think is more a realistic pick?
I'm going to give you my wish lick first.
Okay.
But no. So my wish pick would be. So if this is later on, closer to Rogue One, then I think it makes sense to pull somebody like Krennic in. I don't know what level he is or what rank he would be at this point or what, how that even would play into the story. I mean, we all are suckers for cameos and we like things to be connected. But again, at the end of the day, we want it to mean something, right? So it would be nice if there, in some way, it move, whoever this was, it moved the story forward in some way, yeah? But Krennic would be cool just because of Rogue One, and I loved his character in Rogue One. I think he's got a bone to pick with a lot of people, and seeing him in a different light here could be interesting. But I think probably the more obvious one, I hate to say it, but like Tarkin would be a good one because we get that consistency. We've seen Tarkin in the Clone Wars. We saw Tarkin in Rebels. We see him all the way through until, of course, he dies. But yeah, the consistency of bringing him back into the show. I don't think somebody like Vader would be here as much as I'd like to see that too. I don't think somebody like Palpatine. I don't think what's happening here is at the level yet where he needs to come in and provide information or give orders in some way. I think it is going to be at an officer kind of level with maybe Vader as the tip of that spear at most. But what are your thoughts?
Let me throw another name at you and see what you think. Galen Erso.
Oh,
Because again,
okay.
Yeah, because we know that he's the chief scientist for the Death Star. And again, does it make sense within a military, meeting? Maybe not. But again, if you're looking for connections to Rogue One, Galen Erso, I think, makes a lot of sense. Because we know he was integrated in with the Empire for quite a while before he disappeared. So I think it's kind of an interesting one to do. I think so. My wish list would be Thrawn.
Well,
I think would be really, really cool. Realistically, though, I don't know if they'll do it, but I think Tarkin probably makes the most sense. Again, not knowing the context of what they're talking about here, but when you just think about who dominates a room, Peter Cushing, even in death, still dominates a room and just has this presence with how they've built that character up and how they can present it, and they've already done it before. And you talk about intimidation and keeping things in line and keeping people in line. Tarkin is just such an intimidating character in general. And again, Vader doesn't necessarily get involved with, I think, this type of thing. Again, missing context here, but and again, we got a lot of Vader, so maybe I just want to cool off on Vader a little bit, to keep that one interesting for a while longer. But I think more realistically is probably Tarkin. But I think Galen Erso is kind of a dark horse here, depending on what they're talking about.
I like the idea of him coming in. And if we were to tie all this back, I was trying to work backwards from this and work it back into what we've already talked about as potential story here. But if we go down the path of them, mining this, let's go back to the robotics lab that we're calling, right? If those are parts at some point that make up the actual cannon that's going to go on the Death Star, critical components of the Death Star, or the laser itself, and he comes in and now he's giving orders about, hey, something's not working, or they're talking about it, and he comes in and kind of breaks the tie or provides more information about it, right? That'd be a way for them to tie it all together, that he's advising on some of the stuff that's happening there at the ground level. The Thrawn idea, yes. Here's why I didn't say Thrawn, because I think if you ask 9 out of 10 people who their wish pick would be, I think they're going to say Thrawn, and I don't want to gloss over that, because I kind of feel the same way. The only reason I didn't say Thrawn is we don't have. It seems trickier to put a Thrawn in here, because now you've got to.
Well, you don't want to ruin. You don't want to ruin the surprise aspect with Ahsoka either.
Yeah, you're landing. Not only that, well, that's a good point too. I hadn't even really considered that too much, but yes, you would be kind of spoiling that piece, because I think we're all waiting to see who the live action Thrawn is, and suddenly we get a cameo in here, which would be cool, right? I mean, that would play into the Marvel-esque kind of storytelling that they've been talking about doing. However, I think if unless they rough up the imagery or in some way, you're almost kind of have to commit to that person. It's aesthetically, you may have to commit to the look, the sound for somebody like Thrawn, and if that's already been figured out and they've already got that planned and everything, then I think it's fair game, and I think it's perfectly fine. But we got to remember, this was filmed in 2020.
Yeah, we're still a whole year away from Ahsoka too.
Yeah, so we're way far off. So I don't know that they were thinking that far ahead or were ready to commit to something. Again, they could make it, rough it up a little bit, because it is a hologram and we're not going to get the physical presence. But that suddenly, for me, it feels like that suddenly kind of steers your artistic direction for what that character or that character design in some way to kind of link those two together.
All right, so you've convinced me. So my wish pick is going to be Galen Erso then.
Okay.
Well, and the more I think about it, I mean, it makes more sense, right? And I think when I said it, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's just who I want to see.
No, exactly.
But I think Galen Erso, is probably where I'll if I get a do-over, if I get a mulligan here, I'm going to go with Galen Erso for the block.
Okay. Well, 50-50, or would you like to phone a friend, Jonesy?
I may have to phone a friend, but
okay. Steph's available. But wait, never mind. She's already chimed in. She said Thrawn, always Thrawn. So
damn it.
She's failed you. A couple people have also chimed in here recently. Riley's here. She says, yo back at you. And Steph also said, when I was building my Imperial Officer cosplay, I also noticed the inconsistency. I ended up deciding on some random one because it didn't seem to matter anyway. And you're right. You throw a bunch of like red and blue squares on there, nobody's gonna know. Like, oh
Nope.
yeah, you can't keep up with all the ranks that are out there.
Well,
There's too many of
until you get that one person that does.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's not accurately correct. They're historically correct. Okay. Whoa. I didn't mean to go that far into.
Yeah. But we have spent a lot of time on this one.
Well, yeah, I didn't think we were going to spend this much time on it, but it's good. It's good fun. I mean, that was a conversation. Here's the shameless plug for Yeti tumblers, where you've got
nicely done, by the way.
Sorry, I forgot. I posted something on Twitter today where I photoshopped the Yeti logos into that. It was on my phone, so don't expect anything wonderful.
Oh well, hey, Star Wars Photoshop gave you a like on it.
Oh, did he?
Cool.
Okay, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Then he's my hero, honestly. So I'm pretty happy with that.
But this is where we get that line from Cassian about what was it? They're so proud of themselves, so fat and satisfied.
Yes, and they show these guys of all, and they've got one's on the right, little heftier guy, and they seem to be pretty satisfied. I mean, they're like, this is such a weird shot, but it's so like cool. I like it too, right? Because we never see Imperial officers this casual about anything. You know what I mean? They're
break,
always
drinking some calf.
Right, exactly. These guys are part of a union that was started a long time ago. It's not very well known in the Empire, but they did have unions.
Probably watching Liverpool and Man U.
Exactly. Yeah, you can see it on the back there, and that little telly that's back there. You can see the game playing.
Yep.
But no, in all seriousness, as much as serious as we can get, they're smirking and drinking like coffee that they've picked up at Starbucks or something, and they're just kind of like casually having a sip. And you got to think they're probably watching something horrific. You know what I mean? Like a city's being blown up, or people are being tormented, or and something horrible is going on, and yet they seem to be smug, drinking their morning lattes out of their tumblers here. But
yeah, as they watch an invasion and hostile takeover or something. Yeah, I agree.
And this one was called Coffee Not with Kenobi, as far as the description. The one on the left, again, going by Rogue One rankings, not that it really matters. The one on the left is a colonel, and then I could not find anything on the right. That is a brand new, like, even in the Rogue One ranks, that is not out there. But it's somewhere, I would imagine, between an admiral and a commodore, because the commodore has one. I think the commodore has one red stripe or one red square, and the admiral has 4 red squares, and this one has 2 or 4 blue squares, and so this is kind of in between. So there you go.
Maybe they're okay. Yeah, I'm not even going to speculate because I'm terrible with military rankings anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you what's above what either. That's the other confusing part.
I can't even tell if it's yellow or orange on the guy on the left. So
yeah, I think it's
like yellow orange. I like how they're in sync though. That's Empire. Yeah,
well, they're mirrored. You know, like one's with the right hand, one's with the left hand, up and down. I wonder how like that little gift. That by the way, looks cute.
I wonder how long they had to practice that scene before they got it right.
Yeah. 3,
Perfectly
2,
in
1,
sync.
Lift and touch. And
I'm going to give them a 9.6 out of 10.
Yep. Cut. That's a wrap. Thanks, guys. This guy in the back, I don't know if we see him a little bit later. There's an Imperial officer that is a tall black man. It could be this one. I'm picturing him in there. It's hard to tell. Or I got a better theory for that, though.
Could be infiltrate. Yeah, it could be.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, like the guy that we saw, the rebel, the freedom fighter, undercover, or
Fulcrum.
Yeah, Fulcrum, the start of Fulcrum. Cool stuff, though. All right, this is we'll move on to the next one here, where this woman, who I am presuming to be Cassian's sister, now older. Right. We see her a little bit later. She's bloodied up, but she looks to be running through the streets. Now, the interesting thing is no one else is running here in the streets, right? So it doesn't look like, there's an invasion of some sort. People seem to be minding their own business. And she seems to be running full speed, looking behind her as though someone's chasing her in some way. So, thoughts on this?
Yes, she's running.
All right. We're moving on to the next scene. Again, it's hard to say. We just know it feels like somebody's chasing her. There's not really a whole lot.
It doesn't appear to be related to some of the other scenes because there's sunlight in this one. So it's a little unclear if it's mirroring the guy who was beaten on the alarm with the hoodie kid. It again, stitching these together while the environment seems similar. Some of the lighting of it seems very. You can see the sunlight are all in that there, but so very difficult. The other one seems like it's very cloudy and overcast type of lighting.
Now I'm going to marry this scene with one later where she's bloodied up.
Oh, I thought you were going to marry her. She's cute.
But because I say that because it looks like, to me, the way I was putting this in my head is she does get captured by these local authorities, and we can see that.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the aftermath of what's happening here, right? She gets caught and hurt.
And you can imagine they're probably blowing buildings up and not really caring about casualties as they go and chase anybody.
Right.
Especially if it's the Empire.
Yep. This guy's still banging on a drum over here.
Yep.
And he's like fierce about it too. Like there's something passionate about.
Hey, you take a lot of pride. It's probably a generational thing. He's probably been passed on for generations. And his great grandpappy did this.
Yeah.
Back when this anvil was first forged in the fires of Mordor.
Oh my gosh, you're just like pulling at Lauren's heartstrings. She's already been like giddy that we've made one Lord of the Rings reference, and now there's two. Okay.
Yeah, if you're gonna do two, I guess you gotta do a third at some point.
Yeah, do a third. We'll work it in there somewhere, Lauren. I don't know where. This is I'm gonna say,
is this Coruscant?
I mean, that's the obvious choice, but we saw with what was it in Bad Batch, and I forget the name of that place, right, where we have the cars flying through the air. So that's not an uncommon thing in Star Wars. But our first instinct is to always go, oh, that's Coruscant, because there's ships in the air and these tall buildings. I think it makes sense, especially if this is kind of coupled with the
Mon Mothma and the Senate. Yeah.
Right. I think that's probably all related. These definitely look like elevators. You can't really tell until the very last frame, almost right here, but you can see the lights on in there. So they do look like, at first I thought they were like lifts where people just stood on. I was going to make a joke about no railings, because there are no railings at the top here. But they are inside there. These people are in these elevators of sorts. What's really cool, though, is if you look at the way it's designed, not, again, because we're going to nerd out on the engineering here, but they're almost like trains, you know? They're like made to like stop and allow the next one to go past and all that. But you can kind of see where that one comes to a stop, and this one continues on here. So I don't know what else is there to say. I do have a question, though, because from what we know, most of what happens around Mon Mothma and the Senate, that's all above ground, right? This clearly looks like they're going down further below, and we know that the further you get down into Coruscant, the worse things gets. Yeah, the seedier it gets, right? So, I don't know if there's a link here in some way, or we're going to get introduced to some of those lower levels and kind of what's going on there at that level, or no pun intended. But that would be kind of cool to kind of see that. I don't know who this would be. Maybe it is Mothma. Maybe she is.
Yeah, it could be Mon Mothma, right?
Right.
You have clandestine meetings where you're doing things you know you could get in trouble for.
She's going underground, like literally going underground.
Yeah.
So, thank you, folks. I'll be here all night.
We have Sarah Michelle Gellar.
It's Sarah Michelle Gellar.
But doesn't she look like her a little bit?
It does look. I think it's the nose, or maybe it's the eyes. I don't know. This is.
But we got Death Troopers.
Yeah, Death Troopers in the back. She's flanked by those, which is cool.
Potentially a shuttle Tidarium? Like a Lambda class shuttle back there?
Lambda class, yeah. Or like we saw the Lambdas in Rebels, and they were slightly different. I don't know if that was a stylistic thing, or they were trying to show the evolution of what that would look like by the time we get to Jedi, but similar. I actually hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it is. It would make sense that an officer would be traveling in one of these shuttles at this point, because we got Death Troopers and we're close to Rogue One, right?
Right. And again, she's wearing lighter color, or a white of sorts, but again, very different style than what we saw with the men around the table in the earlier scene, though.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like she's got a trench coat. She's probably smuggling a kid under there.
Oh, that's true. We've seen that happen already. But I think she's definitely got an officer collar. It's just she's an Imperial agent of some sort, but
right.
She could be. I think she is an officer of some sort. This is played by Denise Gough.
Gough. However you guys would like to pronounce that, we are on board.
Yep, make it up. But Denise, I'm going to call it Go. Denise Gough is this. This is the actress that's listed here. So again, no name officially, but it's clearly her. Let's see. Sorry, I meant to go forward here. And
then, you think we're going to get to see the Death Troopers in action in this series?
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, they're there. I'd hate for them. I mean, again, if they're going to show us these things, we're likely going to see them in action in some way. So that'd be great. I mean, I think with a Death Trooper, it's such a high powered like trooper that it feels like it'd be at the end and not just casually thrown in the middle. Not to say that we work up to this, but these are pretty bad boys, right? So Eugene Bird is with us, says ISB maybe. That's true. I hadn't thought about that. So that's the what is it? The Imperial Security Bureau? Yeah. So they're like the NSA, CIA kind of group. Secret Service, right, for the Empire. And these guys have all kinds of crazy things that they're doing. They're like the most paranoid of the paranoid people of the Empire, or the ISB agents.
Oh, actually, here we go. Listener of the day with coming up a name for our drummer, the Time Grappler. He's also going to become a super villain whenever when someone takes his anvil and then he goes underground and starts building other timekeeping devices to mimic his activities. Yes.
Thank you, Jorge. I appreciate that, man.
The Time Grappler.
Time Grappler.
I like that.
All right. The other thing is here, not that it's a big deal, but she seems to be walking, and then if you look at that last frame, she's kind of looking high and up into the air. That's something that's caught her eye. I don't know what, maybe.
I mean, she's definitely looking up, yeah.
Hey, you know what? We're gonna extend this to 2 hours in one way or another, folks, okay?
We're well on our way.
We're well on our way. We're only halfway through this trailer.
All right. Definitely Coruscant here, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's in the subtitles. What? Is it really the Time Grappler? I didn't catch that if it is. What the heck does that mean? Jonesy, how did you let this one slip through the cracks? I blame you.
I would blame myself too.
All right. Okay. No, we got to stop.
But that makes more sense because again, he's banging on he's keeping time. He's literally.
So he's like literally a grandfather clock.
Yes.
A clock he's a clock grandfather.
Yes. He's from Europe.
That takes all the mystique out of it. Like I'm not even.
What? I think it's great.
Why?
It confirms we've already been proven right about something. And we didn't even know it. This is fantastic. My day is made.
Man, Jorge, why did you...
Time Grappler.
Time Grappler. Okay, fine. You know,
I'm just going to put this on repeat now with captions on. Just look at Time Grappler all day long.
Time Grappler. There we go. All right.
I love this shot right here with Mon Mothma, though.
Yeah, that's a slick-looking vehicle that she's coming in, that air car.
It is, yeah. It's a nice caddy.
Air speeder. Oh, it is a caddy. You're right.
But how many times have you seen important figures in TV, right? Where you have this very angled shot of them in a car with the window closing or the door shutting and they're just peering out of it. I mean, it's a very classic, shot. And I like that we have this here and actually it looks very much like it's shot right outside. Someone's just in the car and they did this except for the suicide doors here.
Yeah, it's Tesla. Model of some sort.
Right. But again, I think, so how do you feel about this with, supposedly there's going to be a Mon Mothma aspect of this show that will be less about Andor for a while and will give Mon Mothma a lot of time to shine. And supposedly by, I think it was like episode 4. Yeah, there's going to be something, everybody's going to be talking about Mon Mothma. And so how does that feel for you? Knowing that they're so intertwined later, I think it makes sense. But it's a show called Andor. This kind of goes back to the Obi-Wan Kenobi thing, right? It doesn't all have to be about Kenobi, right? It can be about the things that are influencing their decisions around them and the things that will come later and foreshadowing, right?
Or tangentially connected in some way, right?
Exactly. Yeah, our paths are converging in some point, but we want to know where everybody comes from. But does it bother you that we'll spend time completely away from Andor if they're not in any kind of way connected at this point?
I don't have a problem. Like, first off, we pulled that Band-Aid off and threw it in the trash long ago when we got to the episode with Mando and Luke Skywalker jumped in for 2 episodes and said, this is now my show, right?
Right.
Okay, so that aside.
Well, to be fair, Grogu stepped in and said it his show day 1, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hold my beer kind of thing. But this doesn't bother me because I think in the context, and I don't know, I don't have the quote up right here in front. I mean, it's written somewhere, but there's a million quotes that I put in this.
They're everywhere. They're watching me now.
Yeah, no, well, I meant the quote from Gilroy that mentioned about her coming in season 4, or I'm sorry, in episode 4, and that we were going to get more Mon Mothma backstory. what the context of that quote also says that we are, like you said, going to see these. Well, these two characters may not directly interact with each other. What's happening at this level is impacting or influencing the Andor, and so kind of like what I said earlier about with cameos, right? We want these cameos and these side stories to kind of help move the story forward, help provide more context, right? Recontextualize certain things that we may have seen, or provide more clarity around things. I think it's so much is in that they do that. I think it's fine, right? This character is so beloved by everybody. Like Genevieve O'Reilly, who this is the same actress who portrayed her in Rogue One. It's a character that we all like. Yes, we get some Mon Mothma story in Rebels. It's kind of light, but that's, she's kind of bringing the rebellion together. She officially anoints the rebellion as being, or declaring it as his official thing.
Christens it,
if you will. But I think it's fine. I kind of want to know what's going on here, especially like
I think it's relevant. Yeah,
yeah. And going back to what you said, the quote here where she says they're watching me, like she's a primary target as as a senator, somebody who has very close ties and connections to our boy over on Alderaan. All of these guys have a big target on their back, and they are systematically being targeted and being watched. By the ISB, by the Empire. I think that really plays right into that whole espionage intrigue, or espionage kind of storytelling that we would expect from like the Americans, right? Especially if she's living these two lives where we see her as a senator. There's a shot later where she's actually in the Senate, on the Senate floor. And then, what if she's going down to the bottom levels of Coruscant and, starting that rebellion there, living those two lives in secrecy? Yeah, good point. She's going to we know she has ties to Saw Gerrera at some point, and she eventually breaks those ties because he's an extremist. But that would be really cool to see that level. I mean, maybe Saw Gerrera is already maybe he's on Coruscant. That's who she's going down to visit. And later on, he picks up and heads out to Jeddah to kind of set up his base operations. But I think all of it's fair game. That's a long-winded answer of saying yes. So I apologize for that.
Well, again, I think it comes back to we're viewing the series as a prequel to Rogue One, not necessarily a prequel for A New Hope and everything that comes in the original trilogy, right? And so I think all the things that would get mentioned in Rogue One or alluded to, or very background stories, that's what these 24 episodes are supposed to be telling us. And I think with Andor and Mon Mothma's journeys being so integrated, and again, I think Draven is another presence that needs to come up at some point, right? He needs to be in this, I think probably more season 2 as they get more ingrained in it. What are the things that they wanting Andor to do? How dirty does his hands get? But I think all of those things matter, right? And I think it's all instrumental as to the birth and the progression of the rebellion is very much aligned with Andor's own journey. So it only makes sense that we would get both of those, going on at the same time.
Yeah, and again, the one thing that I did notice too, if you look here, this insignia, and I may not know or remember this. I've got my Rogue One visual guide down here, and I meant to look it up, and I didn't get a chance to. But this,
I believe that would be called a brooch.
Okay, thank you, Christian Dior. But she has it here as well.
Yeah, on the other side though. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is the brooch of.
Maybe it's for her home planet. Where's she from? Chandrila?
I think you're right. Maybe Corellia? No, she's not Corellian.
I think she's Chandrilan.
So maybe that.
Or maybe I'm just thinking about where she was stationed at for a while in one of the books.
But so that's interesting that she has it there. Maybe there's some significance. Someone's going to call us out for that, so we'll just scrap that from the show. Edit that right out. But
nope, it's all staying.
But this is, so she here, she's taking the Uber, she's going to work or whatever, or maybe it's Lyft, I don't know. But in this next episode, in this next scene, she's at a gala, a ball of some sort, right? She's kind of, rubbing shoulders or whatever with all these famous political figures. I imagine these are all their senators from different planets and that sort of thing. But the cool thing about the shot is this is when she says they're watching me or whatever. She walks away with a big smile on her face, and then as you play this further, she does a great job of turning that into very concerned look, like, holy crap, they're on to me, or I got to get out of here quickly. So that's all. She definitely looks concerned.
Very much so. Yeah. And again,
they're watching me now.
Right. Yeah. And this is where we get the overdub here of being watched. And again, I like that we're going to get a little bit of that political theater going on too. Like, how did she and Bail navigate all of this and keep it relatively under wraps and not get completely outed or hunted down? And again, I think those are all relevant within this series. I think it's going to be interesting how they toggle between these. Are they going to be dedicated episodes of her? Or are we going to be flashing back and forth throughout an episode? So I probably more the latter, I think, because it is Andor. So we should see Andor every episode. But I'm excited that we are getting both aspects of that and see how all this stuff really does come together in a more total fashion than just one small aspect or one person's journey through it, even though that's really important.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very stressful for them. And I think that's part of the intrigue for me about the show is just this whole kind of like paranoid. And Gilroy said as much, right? We're going to get these kind of everybody's paranoid, right? And everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder, almost literally, as we saw in the trailer here, because the Empire is everywhere and they're starting to creep in. I just pulled it up, and I can see she's got a brooch or some sort on here, but it says it's a Chandrillan Medal of Freedom, but that does not look like the same brooch that you see there. They're totally different. So, I don't know. Maybe they'll explain it. It's probably nothing. But you're right. It is Chandrilla. So, circle gets the square. You want to take Jim J. Bullock for the block?
Yes.
That's a Hollywood Squares reference. Okay, let's move on.
This is what we talked about early on, right? These really long, sweeping, establishing shots of the terrain. I mean, gosh, absolutely beautiful on location shooting here.
There's I'm assuming this is the blonde-haired freedom fighter there, and maybe casting. Oh no, this is the guy with the hat. You can hardly tell because of the image that we're showing here, but if you zoom in, it's the kid with the red hat that we're seeing in this shot right here, standing there in the middle. Okay, so here's
here's the folks that we saw hiding the weapons before.
Yep. And this time they're facing forward. We got, let's talk about the AK-47 controversy. So again, here's where I'm going to say that and this was just not to bring did I say we had to bring the role-playing game into this a third time? Or no, that was Lord of the Rings. All right. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Back in the role-playing game, they had established that ballistic weapons were a thing. Why are you getting
I'm just getting comfortable. This is going to be a while.
No, it's not going to be a while. I'm just going to say quickly that ballistic weapons were in Star Wars, have technically always been in Star Wars and Legends. Although we like to think that most, civilizations are so advanced that they would use laser weapons, there are some that still relied on ballistic. And I think that's what we're seeing here. So you may not like the fact that it looks like an AK-47, but there's actually a scientific reason as to why that magazine is curved. Would you like to know why, Jonesy?
I absolutely would be interested.
Or do you know the reason why that magazine is?
I do not.
Curved? Okay. So if it is a ballistic ammunition, if it's ballistic ammunition, if you've ever looked at a bullet like that would fit into an AK-47, it's cylindrical, and then it turns into, it's got a kind of a spear head to it, right?
Right.
Well, as you line these up, it naturally takes a curved angle.
Right.
So that is one way to have a magazine that you can have. If you put them all side by side, then it's hard, there takes some more engineering that goes into it. And that's what made the AK-40, one of the things that made the AK-40 so popular is that you can have these big magazines of weapons in those weapons. So there you go. That's the reason why. The controversy is people were really pissed off because now, oh my gosh, we have AK-47s in Star Wars. And for one, it could be a ballistic weapon. We don't know for sure. It could be a blaster for all we know. And they just,
and
aesthetically, they're going for that look.
We saw Din Djarin put shells into his rifle.
Yep.
In order to do, the disintegration stuff. And so,
yeah.
I mean, we have seen shells before being used. So and we see that, this guy's got a ammunition belt there too with individual. So, it's not, but again, it looks more like a blaster that he's holding and he's got holstered in his belt there.
I mean, Chewbacca had the bandoliers on. I mean, not that they were carrying like ammunition in them, but
right, it's really just carrying beef jerky.
Yeah, it snacks a lot. Always thinking with your stomach. Okay, so
right. But again, back to basics though. When you're guerrilla warfare or you are severely out, you don't have resources at your disposal. You take whatever you can get your hands on, too, right?
Yep.
And that you would not have access to the most advanced weaponry or even maybe semi-recent weaponry, seems completely reasonable to me that they would have to rely on weapons and things that maybe they prefer not to use.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they might not be as effective against stormtrooper armor or something like that, but we'll have to see exactly what it is. I have a feeling it's not just going to be straight up bullets though, right? There's going to be something that goes with it that's going to feel and seem more Star Warsy. And so we've not seen anything shot like projectile or anything like that. So
no,
let's all kind of cool. Let's all cool our jets a little bit before we see actually what they're going to do on screen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some blaster bolts a little bit later attacking that car speeder on the ground there a little bit later. But
we haven't seen anything out of the AKs here, basically, right? So
yeah. Well, look, Riley chiming in with the pragmatic approach here. Lasers would burn down the Force. Duh. That's correct. Right?
Did it though? On Andor, they just kind of splintered the trees.
You know what? We're moving on.
When the ADSD.
We're moving on. I
know. Sorry to ruin it with my canon and not my West End games knowledge.
Yeah. Well, that's your fault, my friend. But the last thing I will say is, again, going back to the hoodie argument that we made earlier, in a galaxy full of people, the odds that somebody would have created ballistic weapons of some sort, pretty high. Right.
Hey, doesn't this guy have a hoodie too? On the left?
You know what? You're just trying to stir the pot, man.
Well, does he?
He does. It's
all
practical.
Right. Fashion forward. Oh, now we have a jacket with a hood on it.
Okay, so...
if Jedi can have hood, why can't some kid in the street? All right, anyway.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So I call this Lookout Luthen, and this is Luthen. This is the character played by...
That's actually pretty good.
Stellan Skarsgård, who is looking again at that same plateau. We can see everything there. So I don't know if he's a lookout person. I from what I remember in the stuff that was released from the Hollywood Reporter or Vanity Fair. Sorry, I keep getting those mixed up. But Vanity Fair, he is an ally of sorts, right? So I don't think he's an Imperial agent of some sort, but he does seem to be helping them in some way.
Yeah, he's definitely not dressed like an Imperial.
No,
because they look more like fatigue type green. Rather than Imperial grays or anything like that. He does have a collar, but again, this doesn't seem overly Imperial in nature.
No, and aesthetically, this falls in line with what we're seeing from like all of the freedom fighters that we've seen so far. You think about Rogue One, they had a lot of natural like earth tones to their colors, right? There's all that stuff was like browns and dark grays and all that stuff, blacks. So this seems similar. I think two things that stood out to me. One, he looks like he's crying. Maybe he's just got something in his eye. You can't really tell him this, but go watch it again. It could be the wind. Maybe the wind's just whipped up in his eyes and it's making him tear up. I don't think that's really the case. They just look like it. But the other thing is, what is this thing he's holding here? It looks like a spear, a rod of some sort. Is it a walking stick? Because God knows we need another walking stick dissection.
We do need we need another dissection for walking sticks.
Yeah.
We have added to the collection. Maybe it's Ahsoka's walking stick. From Ahsoka the White.
Yeah. You might be drunk. You might need to go home.
I'm just drinking your Kool-Aid, man.
This is okay.
This is the raft.
Yeah, from
Marvel.
All right, so I'm gonna talk about these next scenes as though again they were all kind of part of the same set, if you will.
All right.
But this to me looks like it's one of two things. I think it's either an Imperial training facility or it's an Imperial prison of some sort. I mean, we got the water.
Probably more the latter, yeah.
There's water. We got kind of an Alcatraz kind of feel. It almost feel not. It doesn't really look like this, but you think about the Kaminoans and what they did and kind of how they had their stuff, and then underground, which I think is what we're seeing. I'll fast forward just a little bit here.
Yeah, through here.
Yeah, I think this might be the lower levels of it, and that to me, this feels more like the Kaminoans and the clones and what they were doing. Maybe these are the conscripted soldiers that they're training, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll come back to that here in just a little. Let me go back to this first part here. But I think this is the outside, obvious, real in-depth knowledge there. This is the outside. This is likely the inside. Again, you've got a sterile environment. There's fog coming down. I don't know why.
Maybe it's simulating pressurization or something. Who knows?
Okay, we'll go with that. And these guys look like security guards, though. Like they got the batons.
Stun batons, yeah.
Yep. So that leads me to think this is probably more of a prison than a military training facility. Right. This one's a very interesting shot. It happens for a very split second, and I'll try to catch it. But you see this guy on the far right-hand side, he's trying to get his foot in. The light is green right now. You can't really tell on the screen that we were showing. But then as soon as his foot comes off of that, it turns red, almost like it's armed.
Right.
Right there.
Yep. Again, like it's a cell or maybe their chamber. It kind of reminds me a bit of Ready Player One, actually.
Yep. So these are, I would assume then if that's the case, then these are cells and they've got to get in, lights out kind of thing. And once this is armed, if they were to step foot down here, it would trigger some kind of alarm. And so that's what keeps them from.
Or these could be individual training rooms for whatever they're doing for simulations or something like that too. Yeah. But yeah, probably more quarters.
Yep. This is the other scene that makes me think they're probably more prisoners because they don't have shoes. If you look, they're all barefoot, or they've got, like you said, booties, I think is the technical term that you used earlier.
Right. And again, if
nobody knows what booties are anymore, by the way. You
really?
do because you're older, yes. But no one, you tell somebody to put on some booties, they're going to be like, what? You're talking about my booty. Anyways.
But yeah, so I don't think they're soldiers because I think what we saw during Bad Batch, Clone Wars primarily, but I think we would see the same thing in the Empire days, where they would have more of the bodysuit rather than what appear to be white jackets and pants.
Yeah.
And so again, I think we're definitely seeing some sort of prisoner type of system, and these are just conscripted workers.
True.
Or indentured workers, yeah.
I think it's clear, though, that they are wearing the same outfits that we saw from the Tesla lab folks earlier on in this.
It's like a little more red, but again, it could just be the distance of the camera. Yeah.
This is Kyle Solar looking at Cassian Andor. Again, the younger Cassian Andor in that shot.
Yeah, maybe more artist interpretation of.
Yep. This is a continuation of people ringing the bell. Somebody's coming. The British are coming. I don't know. Somebody. They're running now, though. In the background, you can see people are.
Maybe the time grapplers. Maybe it's like it's voting season. It's time to see if they're going to have a new time grappler or not. So they're all.
Oh, right.
It's the way that they advertise their thing. They don't have debates. They just all bang on stuff.
Yeah. And then speaking of the time grappler, so this is him, and this begins the series of shots that we get from people with their backs to us.
Kind of rude if you ask me, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it's very rude. However, I mean, to me, there's got to be some symbolism here. I just haven't been able to kind of put my finger on it. It could just be a purely stylistic thing, but everybody with their back suddenly to them as they're doing, and not maybe it's the intrigue of espionage that they're trying to convey in some way, right? Everybody's walking away. You can't tell who's who. Although this guy sticks out because we all banging that drum all damn trailer, but
he's got a really nice vest too.
Okay.
But suspenders.
Yeah, okay. If that's your thing. But so here's that one, and then here's Kyle Solar's character. He's looking at what I assume is going to be the wreckage that we're going to see in a little bit from that airspeeder that's getting shot up. So we see him from the back. Then we get, this is a cool shot, I think, but this is Genevieve O'Reilly playing Mon Mothra in the Senate. We're all very familiar with what this looks like, right?
It's very empty. So she's just kind of taking it all in.
I hadn't noticed that.
I mean, I don't see anybody in there.
Well, if they're anything like our Congress, they're probably not in session right now and on holiday somewhere. So, or, maybe, we don't know enough about the politics. Maybe we do. No, we do. Because, in Clone Wars, they had them. But I'm trying to think, we don't know where the politics sit today. We know the Senate is still in power, of course. We've kind of beat that horse to death in talking about Kenobi. But what if this is like, maybe they've thinned it out a lot? You know what I mean? Maybe there are groups that have decided to leave and like, I'm not part of this crap. I'm getting out of here. And so, she's speaking.
It's also interesting as some are lit and some are not. So very curious what that represents. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sparsely lit, but I still don't see people. I mean, it's hard to tell too. It's kind of blurry.
I think it's just not in session because, again, where the chancellor would be sitting or who presided over it is also empty.
But she's talking, though. Like, if you look at her mouth on the far right-hand side, it is moving. Unless she's chewing gum. Like big league chew gum, because she's got a lot in her mouth. You see that?
Yeah, but that doesn't always mean anything because we see people's mouths moving and no words coming out all the time on TV and movies where they overdub. Like from the side or behind, It could just be the light that's playing tricks with your mind too there.
No, her mouth's moving.
All right.
I know what you're trying to do, Jonesy, but that's not going to work.
Maybe Bail Organa is behind her and they're having a chat.
Maybe she's practicing her speech prior to giving it. because that would be exciting television. Okay,
Yep,
so
here's Portia de Rossi. Oh wait, sorry.
no, it's not Portia de Rossi.
Again, I just saw Scream 2. These people are on my mind.
They're all on your minds right now. This is Denise Go's character. There's what stood out to me is the armor that these troopers are wearing, similar to what Solo.
The cadets, yeah.
The cadets, yep, from Solo. There is somebody that's walking in front of her. Not that it's important, and I could not place it. They look to have, again, a hoodie on of some sort, but it's not. What's his name? I already forgot the dude's name. Skarsgård's character, and it's no one that I could tell had this already in here. So, yeah, no, here. So Rob's chiming in now. There's a delay, by the way. So when you guys put comments in, there's like a 30 seconds or a minute before we actually see them.
I think
so
it's
sometimes,
like 30 seconds,
yeah. So sometimes it's weird because we say something and it's right when you're typing it, and it almost looks like we're stealing your thoughts, and that's not really what's happening. It's just a delay. So we're just now seeing this one, even though we've already moved on past it. But he says all the separatists are gone, which I think makes sense. Like I said, it probably did thin out in some way. But to your point, Jonesy, I still don't see anybody in those pods.
Right, and again, these appear to be the same streets we've seen with the girl running through them, the speeder getting wrecked.
Yep.
So how these all stitch together is going to be interesting.
Okay.
And again, here's the guy maybe that was in the background with the two coffee drinking scum.
Maybe. Or it is the taller freedom fighter that has infiltrated the ranks in some way and is, walking on base here in some sort. I
like how these trench coats are getting a lot of airtime.
They are. Well, they've established trench coats are in canon, so they've got to now put them in other shows, right?
Okay,
so,
don't move.
Okay.
Is that some sort of insignia or emblem on the back of this of this one? Because this almost looks like a Jedi leather type of thing, but I can't tell if that's just the wrinkle of the whatever this fabric is on this other person walking around. I mean, it looks like there's a mist or something else. But
yeah, that is a good question. I'm gonna say no insignia, and just
but it doesn't look like it might be something though.
Everything is something.
Computer enhance.
Yeah.
Oh wait, wrong show.
Enhance. Zoom in. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, you see a hood.
We might have to do. We might have to take that and throw the brightness way up on it and check that out.
Yeah.
Because it looks, I don't know, might be something. We'll check that out and we'll get back to you. We'll do a coat dissection on all coats we saw in this trailer next week.
Because that's what the people want.
Yep.
It's hard not to see a hood and not think Jedi. But
yeah.
But that would support my argument about Kenobi. Just saying. From the last series. Just kidding. All right. This looks like maybe Coruscant at night. I don't know. This is a weird one because it's hard to tell because it's all dark and rainy and. But why is it on a pier? It looks like a pier.
It kind of reminds me of Corellia a little bit too. So who knows where this is at? And again, there's other stuff going on out in the background, like some sort of, again, like a manufacturing type of area.
Well, and there's also these aircraft in the area up top, that have these like searchlights. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And they're just kind of circling. So maybe, patrols of some sort.
Right.
Okay. Something to think about. Now this one.
Yeah, here's our clone troopers. Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Someone brought
probably
up.
Closer to the clones.
That's probably Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. That's Revenge of the Sith style right there.
I would say so.
Yeah. Someone brought a baseball bat to a gunfight.
Yeah. Just the dumbest thing ever. But, maybe it kind of speaks to the state of this person's mind and where they are, how fed up they are with this. What's interesting about this shot is one, it's obviously dark and overcast, but there seems to be snow falling. And you can see like what looks to be snow on the ground. And if that's the case, I mean, unless we're getting all kinds of weather in some of the shots we've already seen, I don't know where the heck this shot is even at.
It's interesting. There's like a torch, like a trash can torch there doing light around the fire.
Yeah. Yeah,
true. It's like that. You know what? This is probably Maz's castle.
And we're moving on. Here's where I said this could be a sister. You can see the same kind of armor from those, what we're calling local authorities here in the back.
Right.
She seems to be bloodied up. So if we're going with the trope of she dies in some way, maybe this is just prior to that happening, But I would imagine they caught up with her at some point when she was running earlier. So
Yeah.
All right.
Took some splash damage from a wall.
Probably. This reminds me of like Rogue One, the scene in particular, right? Just the way it's shot and looks. But yeah, this thing is moving forward, and you can see it gets hit in the front by these blaster bolts. This little air speeder, car speeder, whatever. What are they called?
Speeder works.
Okay, we'll just call it a speeder. But yeah, it gets hit in the back though. Look at that. You see the engine blows out in the back there, or the thrusters blow out. It's definitely getting shot from the front, and we'll pair that up in just a second with this shot here, where this guy is shooting at it as it's coming towards him. Right? But you can see there's officers in the back too. So I'm assuming that these officers shot it in the back. You got some in the front, and this guy gets out of the way, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I can't tell, because later on, remember that shot where Cal Solar's character is standing down, looking at what looks to be somebody that died, and there's some rubble there burning. I'm assuming this is that. It's all that same shot. It's got to be in some way, right?
That's what I think too.
Okay. Then we get him very dramatically running up and looking at the director. He's probably pissed about salary or something. Okay, and then we get to the final shot. Unless you got something to add there, I don't know what else there is to say. All right, so this is the one that is just mind-blowing to me. I don't know. It's very fascinating. Because when you first see the shot and you see all these lights, the very first, 8 million times that I saw it, I thought these were like ships taking off. You know what I mean? Like these were the back lights of them taking off.
And for those listening, so this is the shot with the TIE fighters, with the person jumping down to presumably get in the ship. But in the background, you just see all these like firefly like type of lights just going from right to left. And yeah, you're right. At first glance, you think they were ships or something, but they don't have any kind of form to them. They're just these glowing objects.
Mm-hmm. Like they're the wheels of the Force taking off.
It's midi-chlorians.
The midi-chlorians are leaving the planet. They've had enough as well. So a couple things. Number one, I don't think they've cut this as to make it look that like this is Andor jumping into the TIE fighter, and that's not the case. This is not
the case at all. Yeah.
Not the cockpit of a TIE fighter. Way too big. It's a single seat, right? Maybe a bomber, but that's clearly not a bomber. Not to get nerdy here, but
when he's flying, like the cockpit is nothing like any kind of TIE.
No, this looks to be some kind of a shuttle or a larger craft of some sort, right?
Star Tours, yeah.
More Star Tours. But I think that the more interesting aspect here is going back to the lights. Like in this shot, we see the lights leaving, right? They clearly are moving in one direction, which seems to be away from the planet or some sort, or away from the landscape or away from our perspective. But then when you get to the next shot, they're coming. Let me make sure I got this right. They're like coming at him. Can't really tell.
That is interesting, yeah.
You see that? Or no, they're kind of going away as well. I guess what
but they're there.
But they're there, and he's looking at them, and they all seem to be converging in. You see that? How they're all kind of coming in to the middle of some sort?
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. Like
I can't tell if it's just an atmospheric. I don't know if it's an atmospheric type of thing, or maybe there's rings around the planet and there's debris, or just objects in the atmosphere, or what. But it's very pretty.
Yeah, it could be like a natural occurrence of some sort. It's beautiful in terms of the way it's shot. It's very
absolutely
colorful. Yeah. But and then the other part of me, when I saw this a few times, I thought he was jumping into light speed from like a stationary position of some sort. Like it almost looked like that Starfield was about to launch. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case.
No, it's not. And again, it looks like he's getting roughed up. A little bit of turbulence there too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Good point. Because it definitely looks like the ship is moving, right? He's already in flight in the shot.
Yeah.
And I would assume that's him in that same shot.
Yeah, and you can definitely see it jolting there. He's got a bit of sweat on his brow. He's working hard here.
If you look at the aesthetic of the background too, to me, that looks more like an Imperial shuttle of some sort, right?
Very Imperial, very clean and boring.
Clean lines. Boring.
Yeah. Not junky like the Falcon.
Exactly. Well, maybe the Falcon prior to Han.
Maybe so.
But yeah, but your point's well taken. So I guess seeing somebody jump onto that TIE fighter is intriguing because assuming it's going to launch, that'd be really boring if it didn't. But
yeah, and I can't tell if that person is like in a TIE fighter.
I think so.
Outfit. I can't tell if there's a helmet.
Right.
Yeah, there seems like there, but I can't tell if maybe it's just long hair or something.
There's one frame where it does look like a TIE helmet.
Yeah, but see, also when they get all the way down, it looks like there's hair popping out of the back.
Those are the tubes.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know. I'm making stuff up now.
It's possible.
I'm trying to get this to 2.5 hours.
Oh, well.
Hold my beer.
Right. How long was this trailer? 1 minute?
No, it was 2 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like 1 minute and 54 seconds.
Oh, we shall double our efforts then.
And that's how it ends. Thankfully. I know people are sighing a big sigh of relief. Oh, no, wait, we got this last.
Oh, no, you forgot this one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Marva.
Well, we didn't talk about Luton's comment, though. Soon enough, these days will end. There will be no rules going forward. What does that mean? Like, what rules? There's going to be anarchy and chaos, or they're just, when the wheels finally come off the empire, when people, revolt or rise up. Is that maybe what he's alluding to there?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's alluding to this idea of trying to play nice and not maybe kill people or go down a path of terrorism. I think that's what he's alluding to. Is like, eventually this is all. We're not making progress here, and the only way to get through these guys is we're going to have to take extreme actions, which means call up Saw Gerrera, and fall in line with some of that stuff. And of course, again, we all know he takes that way too far and kills a lot of innocent people.
Right.
Go read Catalyst Rebel Rising. There's some really good examples in there where he did some horrible things.
Right.
In the vein of liberty or rebellion of sorts, right? But he was willing to kill, break a few eggs, if you will, to make an omelet, kind of thing. So I think that's what he's speaking to here. In this particular line, she's talking about this is what a reckoning sounds like.
People are standing up, right?
Yeah, there's somebody standing right here. It could be the officers. I think it'd be pretty gutsy for her to say something like that. If she is part of this, fledgling rebel cell, to kind of put that kind of a comment out there in front of him. Maybe it's somebody else like Andor, or somebody else that's walked in afterwards or prior to that scene that we saw. But she seems to be behind some of this in some way.
Maybe so. That would be interesting if it was the local security group coming in to interrogate or ask questions, and she's just giving her, perception or her point of view on all of this, of what's going on. And it would be very, it wouldn't necessarily get in trouble, but you could definitely see where it would be very sobering, I think, for the security force to hear some of these things, that they really do have a growing problem on their hands.
Yeah. Let's see, a couple comments before we get out of here. That's why we're here, Albert, for you guys to get nerdy. Thank you, Steph.
Mission accomplished.
Eugene says the back of a Corvette pulling away from him. Oh, that's the scene.
The scene.
Yep. Let's see. He also says, thanks for the amazing breakdown and explanation as usual. Hey, you're welcome. That's what we're here for. We missed a Gotal character in the show. No, you're 100% right.
They're missing one. We definitely need to bring one. Yep.
Thank you, Rob, for always evoking the Gotal character references, race references. And Jorge, still with us, says, would love it if Emphas Ness appeared on the show.
That would be cool. She's very localized, but I think that would be pretty neat to have some sort of allusion to her character.
Yeah, I'm
not sure how it fits, but
I'm trying to think of timeline-wise where she would be. She'd be pretty young.
Yeah, but this is, the timing of this show is pretty close to Solo.
I think it's 2 years prior to Solo, if my math is right.
Yeah, but again, the timelines are all over the place, though. And Solo came over a number of years too, right? So I think there's wiggle room.
You know what would be interesting, though? Now that Jorge's brought this up, do you remember the origin of the helmet?
Yes.
I don't remember if it was how did we get that? Was that in the show or the book or comic?
I think it was in the visual dictionary.
Okay, maybe. Either way, and correct me if I'm wrong, the story was that helmet has been passed down to her, right? Her mother wore that helmet.
Right.
So what we did get a, quote, Emphas Ness appearance, and it turns out it's actually not Emphas Ness, it's actually her mom, who's still alive and still kind of leading these efforts, and we get to see that. Like, we get to see her pass and get passed on to the smaller, younger Emphas Ness character.
That'd be a cool connection to it.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Tell you, man, that would re-energize the Make Solo 2 happen, folks. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But that would be a way to kind of coolly, that's not a word, whatever, introduce Emphas Ness and get everybody go, oh, it's Emphas Ness. And like, no, nope, it's her mom. And we told you that this was going to happen at some point. So yeah. Let's see. Hold on. Let's
There you
got
go.
the math there. I think Solo is from 10 to 6 BBY. I believe Andor is 5 to 0 BBY. So yeah, we're right in that wheelhouse of a couple years.
Close enough. Yeah.
And I think it also depends too on where some of this, like you said, where this hits. Is it quote present time 5 years prior to, or is it in the past where Andor's younger?
Right. And yeah, love the logo we're getting here for Andor. The font I think that looks really sharp.
Well, there you go. Thanks for that comment, because I know you're trying to extend it now to 2.5 hours.
That's right.
We got four minutes left.
Minutes.
If you want to talk about the font and some of what goes into it. I will say this: the Andor, the logo that they're using looks like the Quake logo.
It does.
Almost too much, in my opinion. More like the Quake 3 logo without the 3 lines in it. But
what is the logo anyway? What is that actually? And so for those that might be listening, it's kind of the crescent with a spire in the middle and just a little peak on the bottom.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be visually, it catches your eye, and the first thing I think of is it kind of looks like the Rebellion logo, right? It's the infancy, the origins of that Rebellion logo that we would eventually see, and we kind of saw that in some ways with like the Phoenix Squad. I mean, yes, it was a Phoenix, but the way, if you were just to tilt it, it still looks similar to this. It kind of looks similar to the Rebellion logo. So I think they're all kind of playing on that kind of look.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
excellent.
What do I know?
So so for an initial trailer, overall thoughts, and what does it do to really get you enthusiastic or stoked for the show, and then any other stories you'd like to tell us, Albert?
No, you don't want that. But this trailer, it was fun. It was very exciting. I know Greg had did a quick audio snippet of us talking about it, and he
from Rebel Base Card. Yeah, from Rebel Base Card. Right?
Yeah, sorry, from Rebel Base Card. Go listen to them if you're into Star Wars collecting, card collecting in the Star Wars lens. But he when we were at Celebration, he wanted to get our quick thoughts, having just watched the trailer. And literally, we had just watched the trailer, and I couldn't even process we were just coming off doing the show with Claudia Gray and Tarkin's Top Shelf, watching the trailer. I didn't catch any of the stuff, of course, that was.
Well, we were watching on my little phone right there.
Yeah. So I didn't really get a chance to. I don't feel like I did the trailer justice. I will say now, having watched it and done a 2.5 hour show on it, it was pretty exciting. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here, believe it or not. There's a lot of stuff that leads your mind to think and wonder about. I do enjoy, again, the production quality that we're seeing with Andor.
Absolutely.
I think it's very apparent when you look at this thing and you watch it, and just the amount of time and effort that went into just putting the trailer together. Visually, I love the style that we're seeing, right? If those shots of the characters are in the episodes, I think there may be more significance to that. I think you'd be hard pressed to make an argument that they shot those shots specifically for putting a trailer together. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that tells me that there's a very stylistic approach that they're taking with telling the story visually from a director's perspective, right? And I think that's also very intriguing to me as well, because if you think about some of the series that we had, I'm not saying they're bad or anything, but there's some consistency here, right? Like they're going for a certain approach, they're going for a certain aesthetic, a certain look in how they're directing and filming these, which I think is very cool.
Right. And I like that we're getting a potentially very gritty story, even though we've got this political theater and this political atmosphere that we're going to also have. But I like that it's still very, very gritty, very, very dirty and real in a lot of ways. And it's kind of moving us back a little bit maybe towards that, where in recent times we've been a little more clean. I mean, Mandalorian stuff was clearly out in the dust and everything else, but everything still felt a bit just cleaner, right? I mean, things aren't quite as messy as they potentially could be, but we're right in the thick of just a bunch of stuff going down.
Yep.
And so I'm glad that we're able to see this, and we've got, the beginnings of a bit of a spy thriller, but also really a coming of age story at its core as well, right? Mm-hmm. How does one take everything that you've grown up as and start to change? And as you learn more, as you experience more, how does that change who you are? And then how do the people around you continue to influence? I think it's just it's going to be a really interesting just kind of life story journey for Andor. And I imagine Mon Mothma to an extent too, right? And she's going to have to learn and change and evolve, as she moves through what it means to put together and eventually lead an entire rebellion and a new republic at some point.
Yeah, those are all good points. It is going to be very hard to navigate through that, and we're seeing that here. I mean, there's bits and pieces of it we're seeing with the Empire and just their reign and how they rule and navigating all that's going to be very, very rocky, very tricky. And again, I think that adds to the intrigue and the allure of this particular series, and that she's going to be. I think we're all going to be feeling this very paranoid kind of feeling throughout the episode. I think that's going to be a common thread through all of it. So it's exciting. It's good stuff. Like we haven't had. I mean, in some ways, this is kind of what. I mean, we got Rogue One and we love Rogue One for what it was, but it was being sold as this kind of war is hell kind of movie, and I think they pulled that off pretty well. And now this is being sold as that one component, that one aspect of Cassian Andor that we saw at the very beginning, where he shoots his own fellow rebel person for the sake of the greater mission, right? And that really threw a wrench in our thinking of like, where is this guy's morals? Is he doing the right thing? Is that the right thing to have done? This guy was hurt, he was injured, and yet he killed him because if he died, right, the fight would stop there in some ways. And so shedding light on that and getting to that particular, shedding light on how he got there, it really does bring in this espionage aspect that I don't think we've ever really gotten in Star Wars. In Clone Wars, there was a couple of episodes, but it's kind of touched on here and there, but not to the level I think that we're going to see here. So that in itself is going to be.
And again, that was intriguing to see that there is a dirtier side to the rebellion. It's not all altruism, and we're fighting the good fight and we're doing it the right way. And like, no, there was a lot of dirty work that went on too. And the rebellion's hands are not clean. There have been casualties and innocent casualties, maybe children. I mean, all sorts of things could be in play here. And to see some of that stuff explored, I think would be, again, it brings a bit more reality to what a rebellion looks like, rather than the very black and white type of view that George Lucas, wanted to present it, to give hope and inspiration and, rebel against tyranny and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And I think there's still going to be that. I mean, I don't think the hope aspect's gone of it. I mean, the rebellion. Right.
I mean, people are people, right? I mean, people have different, we've talked about Saw Gerrera a ton, right? And Draven was the same way, it seems. There are people with different interpretations about how you accomplish a certain goal. And, that's the way it's going to be. And they will do what they think is necessary in order to pursue that. But again, where do your ideals start to conflict with what the goals of of what you're trying to accomplish in a greater scheme, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So before we go, and before we get to shout outs, let's do a quick plug. You were on Triad of the Force recently. We should have done this at the beginning of the show, but you want to share a little bit about that and how folks can hear what you guys talked about and where they can find them.
Yeah, Triad of the Force. I should have made a card for this to throw it up, but you can go find them on pretty much all of the podcast catchers that are out there. They are three Puerto Ricans that talk about Star Wars and pop culture. They invited me to come on and talk about the last episode of Kenobi, so part 5. And we had a lot of fun. We spent about an hour and a half. I think I extended that show by 30 minutes alone. So mission accomplished there.
They usually have a hard cutoff at an hour, and mission accomplished, son. Nice job.
Yep. So that was a ton of fun. These guys are really great. Go support them. They've got a very interesting perspective, as we all do, around Star Wars and different points of view from ours. Not really. I mean, there's certainly differences, but we got into some things that you and I didn't really even touch on, which I thought was really cool. So it was we talked about some of the stuff that if you've listened to the part 5 breakdown, there were some things in there that I probably rehashed. I used a lot of my same jokes. Okay, I'll be honest here.
Well, I mean, you've only got like 12, so.
But I got exactly. But I had some new jokes that I threw in there.
Oh wow!
But no, it was
did those fall flat too, or?
Yes, absolutely, right on my face. And but no, it was a really, really good time. So thank you guys, thank you to them for letting me come on to the show, and for Gustavo for inviting me, and we got a chance to meet him over at Star Wars Celebration. That's kind of how all of that started. They are, of course, for obvious reasons, looking very much forward to Andor as well. So yeah, check them out. Fully go support them, and maybe I'll try to throw something in the comment or the show notes as well, so you guys can click that link and see what it's all about.
Really good people. So go support good people and good shows. They do a really great job over there.
Yep.
All right, shout outs.
Did you catch them all?
Yeah.
You've been making a list? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go on.
Man, I'm good at this stuff. Well, these days I'm better at it, at least.
Yeah.
All right. So again, if you listen to the show, we do have a a live stream and there's comments in there. You can chat. Most people are over on YouTube, but you can do it on Facebook as well. So a special thanks to Jonathan, Steph, Lauren, Sky, Rob, Gary, Leland, Risk, Jorge, Lego Cat 3000. I like that one. Ash, William Jackson, Riley, Eugene, and Hard Counter came in at the end, swooping in to save the day and wrap things up. So thank you everyone for chatting in the chat. Good chat tonight. Everyone who's lurking in the background, again, thank you for chiming in or listening and, I don't know, sticking with us for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's so, like, awesome. Like, the fact that people want to stick around for 2.5 hours as we break down every minutia of this
Nook
trailer.
and cranny.
Yeah, frame by frame. But there are people that are weird like that, like us, right? So thanks for being here, fellow.
Well, some of us a little weirder than others. But
well, yes, I'll
that's okay. We were all different for good reasons.
I'll own that one. All right. Anything else before we get out of here? We'll be back in. So again, reminder: tonight is the final.
We're back in about 36 hours. We'll do it all over again.
Kenobi, the final episode. I'm going to stay up. I think Jonesy's staying up as well. We'll be in Discord to the wee hours of the morning, posting comments and spoilers and all that in the spoiler channel. If you guys want to join us there, but we will be back on Thursday night to give you that full breakdown of whatever we see here. In what we got, maybe 3.5 hours left. 2.5.
Wait,
no,
what?
2.5. Yeah, 2 hours and 20 minutes before we get to the trailer or the season finale.
Oh yeah. Tonight, yeah. Still got a few hours. Yep,
A couple hours. So
and again, we'll see if we can hit a 3-hour show on Thursday.
Hey,
you won't want to miss a single minute of it, except most of it. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
We'll just we'll recap it at the very beginning, and you'll be fine.
Yep. Okay. I hope I got the right credits, but yeah, we'll see you guys here in about 2 days.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.